Good evening and welcome to the Board of Commissioners regular workshop meeting. Today is Wednesday, March the 26th, 2025. It is 6 p.m. City Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Brooks. Vice Mayor Kerr.
Here.
Commissioner Taglerini.
Here.
Commissioner McGinn.
Here.
Commissioner Gabayi.
Here.
All are present.
Public comment. Public participation is encouraged. If you are addressing the commission, step to the podium and state your name and address for the record and the organization or group you represent. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes and do not include any topic on the agenda. Public comment on agenda items will be allowed when they come up. If you would like someone at the city to follow up on a comment or question made at the meeting, you may fill out a comment card with the contact information and give it to the city manager. Comment cards are available at the back table in the commission chambers. Completing a comment card is not mandatory. Do we have any public comment? With no public comment, we will move on to the first item on the agenda, which is the Board of Commissioners 2025 BOC Policy Handbook. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Commission, every year at the first workshop after the election, the five of you as the Board of Commissioners kind of go over your policy handbook for any items you would like to change, modify, and this would be the time to go through it. And then at the next regular meeting, for any changes, we would bring them back to you in the form of a resolution for the five of you to adopt.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners, comments?
I have no changes to request.
I have no changes.
I don't.
No comments? I have no comments either. Next on the agenda is City Manager Captain Melvin Jackson, Pinellas County Sheriff's
I'm
Office.
sorry, Mayor,
Yes.
what, did you have something?
I thought you might address the key to the city procedure or an ad that, remember, at the end about, like, if a citizen comes up and we was going to add a line item on the agenda.
For the key to the city, to put that information in the handbook?
Yes, the city attorney had forwarded information on what they adopted at another city he works at and gave to, and I added it into the packet.
Oh, no, I was in the
And-
wrong place, that's why.
And it was mentioned at I think the last workshop meeting about adding, like when citizens come forward and they want to address it, that perhaps adding a line item on the agenda to address that, like reports or something, or citizen comments.
So did someone on the board want to address adding that?
Sure.
I actually do have a couple of things that I just scratched out. If we got to this discussion, I consider the key to the city a symbolic gesture of honor, typically awarded to individuals who've made significant contributions to the city, and they are recognized for their achievement, like local heroes, celebrities, business leaders, philanthropists. It seems like it's things they do for the city that is non-transactional. They did it out of the good of their heart, and they got nothing back from it. So I think that should be, I'm not wording it very well, but I'd like to see that as part of the wording for key to the city. Something that's clearly non-transactional. They're just doing it because they think it's the right thing to do, and they've given to the city. Thank you.
I have a comment.
Please.
I would just like, I would just like to see if any of the board nominates someone for the key to the city to have, and it should be a written reason why, you know, in the case of senator or representative or whoever it might be, list their achievements, what they've done for the city. if it's a public, just a public face, and why are they important to the city, and what are they doing for the city? And it's not only to determine why they should get the key, but it provides to the public why this person deserves it. My only comment.
I didn't overlook it. I thought when I asked, no one was interested in adding it, because that was when I said the policy handbook, any changes, and no one addressed it. That's why I moved on. I didn't know if
I
anyone
was
just
looking at
didn't-
it as a
Yeah, I
separate
just,
line item. I'm
no,
sorry.
it is not. So
It is
that
not.
is
You're right.
part of the
You're right.
policy handbook.
I met with the city manager to look at the type of keys or key. We have two or three different kinds of keys. I think that probably could use a little bit of more of like an uplift. In my opinion, if we were presenting a key to our senator or representative, it should be worthy of presenting the key to them, and it needs to be upgraded. So Robin and I discussed it, and we probably will bring a typical, maybe a look of it to this board if that's desired.
So I think today the conversation is not what the key will look like. It's more about what are the requirements of giving the key to have that verbiage put into the handbook. And when Tom provided, because we can always pick a key, whatever that's going to be, something nice. When Tom provided the examples of a criteria that's the discussion, is if we're going to add that to the handbook, what should the criteria be for that key? To be giving it out, a definition, right, which you've shared what your ideas are. Do you have an idea on that, Hoosh?
Well, I think Vice Mayor Kerr described it. It needs to be highly, a person that goes beyond not just a typical, typical help and typical giving. It has to measure up to a really high standard. As a matter of fact, years and years ago, a friend of mine's mom had just turned 100 years of age, and I wanted to recommend to give, and she lived in Madeira Beach, to give her a key to the city, and the commission did. So, it just like, it has to be a special occasion, special person to be deserving of that key.
Comments, Eddie?
Eric.
Well, just like everyone said, it's per the example that our city attorney had provided for us. It's a certificate of recognition, and it's a declaration, and then it's an honor bestowed by our city for distinguished people and what they do for us. And as Commissioner Tagliarini said, there's no, it has to be something that people also give out of their kindness of their heart and their hard work. So I believe we're all on board and all the way same way along the line. So yeah, definitely, I think it's a great thing to add, and I appreciate the example. I think it's great, and then we just have to, as we go along, pick a time and date when we're going to do this. So.
I just think the only comment I would have is that I don't think we should just be giving keys out to people because they're in government. I think that if we're going to give a key out, we're going to give it to somebody who does something for us. And if they're an elected official, but they don't serve the city in any sort of way, and by that, I'm referring to elected officials on the state level or on the federal level that are elected for our state, I would not be for giving a key to someone just because they are an elected official. I'd be for giving a key to someone who does something for Madeira Beach, whether it's an elected official, an individual, someone who has gone above and beyond and represents that for us, would be my input.
Does it say in here how, does the board have to vote, a majority vote, to provide that award?
The answer is yes. The commission would have to approve any
And
award
where,
like that.
and where is that in here? Is that in here?
It's in the policy that I provided to you for the city of Oldsmar, which we adopted recently there. There was more than one type of recognition. And it's not just the key to the city that you have the ability to give out. The city manager may want to award something, a city commission could award. It could be a proclamation, it could be a certificate of achievement, it could be a milestone award like Commissioner Gavahi, milestone, 100 years. And in Oldsmar, they even created a coin, like a Purple Heart coin, and then a separate city coin, and they allow their commissioners to give out those too. And I think that they agreed 3 a year that each commissioner would get. So there's all sorts of different things. But the way that they have done that basically is that they would put it on the consent agenda as to whether or not the item should be set as a real agenda item for recognition. So if it goes on the consent agenda, for example, to give the key to the city to Senator whoever, and that motion did not carry on the consent agenda, it was done. There's no discussion. It's over. If there was approval on the consent agenda, and again, it doesn't have to be done this way. If there's approval on the consent agenda, it would come back at the next meeting for, okay, are we going to give this person this particular item? And if so, let's schedule a time where we can recognize that person. And then there would be a time set up for the person to come in. So there's a couple-step process. The key to the city should be, in my experience doing this 35 years, it should hardly ever be given out because it is such a high-level recognition. It should not be given out easily. It should be for exceptional service to the city. But back to your question, how does it get done? It would be by a request from one commissioner to add it to the consent agenda for discussion purposes. That's how I would suggest.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just didn't see here in the handbook where it outlined any of that.
I don't think that it does, and I think
Okay.
that that's why the city clerk is saying, if you would like to do it,
This
you
is a-
you
this
can
is an
do it
outline.
here. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be
Doesn't
here.
have-
It could be a separate resolution if you wanted to do that,
Yeah.
but it could be here.
All right. In my humble opinion, I believe it should be, it shouldn't be part of a consent agenda. It should be an agenda item. And there's 2 reasons I would request that it have some sort of written recommendation for whoever's going to sponsor that individual for any of these awards. One, it acknowledges them in the present term, in the present, today, but also it goes into the minutes and it will honor them in forever. So, I think if they can't pass, or they don't pass, that's fine, but if they do pass and it becomes part of the record, I think that's important.
Attorney Trask, I have a question. Based off what you just said, whatever we decide, there's clearly a consensus that we're going to do something for this. Whatever we decide, it would be better as a resolution as opposed to part of our personnel or part of our policy handbook?
If you think that there are going to be changes throughout the year and you don't want to have to wait for the policy handbook to come back for discussion, it should be a separate resolution. It doesn't have to be. And obviously, the handbook is done by resolution too. You
Right.
can always bring that back.
So it seems to me if we are attempting to get our handbook ready to vote on at our next meeting, and no one wants any changes to the handbook, I think that we need some wordsmithing for a resolution on giving a key or awards. I don't know that everybody was prepared to answer for the Oldsmar. And I had read it. I liked it. I liked the idea of the things that I don't know that I would personally want all of them, but I liked the idea of some of the awards that they wrote in that. And I would recommend, my recommendation would be that we all go home and read that and redline it, and let's bring it back to a meeting and get better input on what you really would like to be able to present and give. And then let's just pass a resolution and make it a resolution that's not tied to the handbook. That would be a resolution for future boards and, or for future commissions, which of course they could always change if they wanted to, but with the intent that it would be something that we could write and put together that would serve the community well, long-term.
There was one other thing, I think that I also provided you with the policy of the city of Cocoa Beach. That's in there too. You'll notice in theirs, they basically only have three recognitions: certificates of recognition, key to the city, and proclamation. Oldsmar has a lot more. One thing I would caution you on whatever the policy you do, it would be very, very embarrassing to someone if they were nominated and then the commission decided they're not worthy of that. So it's very important that we think about the process so that we don't embarrass anyone, either the commissioner, the mayor, or the intended recipient. Because there may be three of you that don't necessarily want to give whatever one of the other commissioners have suggested. So we don't want to embarrass anyone. We got to think about that.
Comments?
That doesn't point. I don't know how you avoid that, because if you're gonna be nominated, just because you're nominated, it's not necessarily.
So that's the reason that Oldsmar did it the way it did. They put it on the consent agenda for, do you want an agenda item on the upcoming council to discuss giving a proclamation to so-and-so? And if it did not pass on the consent agenda, there was no discussion about it. It never got to a full discussion. It was kind of like, no. And so it's a couple-step process. Once you get to that point where there's heavy discussion about it, it's almost an assumption it's going to be given, and you can avoid that deep conversation by putting an idea on the consent agenda. There may be some other way to do it. That's the way we did it there.
But so if I could just clarify, but putting it on the consent agenda would still have the person's name to be discussed. I mean,
Yes.
to be, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
right, no discussion, even if we said no, their name would still be there.
It would, unless you wanted to do it some other way.
Yeah, I don't know
You
what that
know,
would be.
So it would avoid the discussion and, yeah.
It would allow you to say, no, I don't want to do that. Three of us could say no, two say yes. You're not really saying why, you're just saying you don't want to, you move on. Where if you had a full-on discussion, we're going to talk about why you're going to say why you wouldn't want to do that, which could be problematic. But, so the consent agenda is just a way to kind of test the waters for where everybody's at.
Exactly.
You're just testing the waters, seeing if everybody supports it, and if they do, it moves forward. If they don't, it doesn't.
And
Yeah.
usually when you adopt the consent agenda, it's kind of like you got like 10 items on it, and it's in the middle somewhere.
Right.
So that you don't pull it out and discuss it to avoid that embarrassment.
And so I think that maybe the challenge up here is we don't use the consent agenda as a rule, because in the past, the consent agenda was used heavily in years past. And we don't use it because using the consent agenda means that Robin has talked to people independently, knows something is going to pass. We don't discuss it. It goes on the consent agenda. We don't have any discussion and we just pass it. And in my opinion, that keeps us from really having discussions in the sunshine where people really understand. This is my interpretation of it. It keeps people from understanding why we voted the way we voted, where we were at, how we felt. So when everything gets discussed openly, and we've done a good job of discussing and saying how we feel and why we feel a certain way on certain things. So if we did a consent agenda, the chances are that would be the only thing on the agenda.
You can always pull items out of consent agenda if you don't feel comfortable.
We don't use the consent agenda at all
I'm just
for that,
in
yeah, for
general
that
terms.
reason. But
Can I?
It is part of your rules of procedure specifically.
Right.
It's supposed to be there, and it's really supposed to be for those items that are, for example, already budgeted. You've already approved the purchase of the truck. For example, why talk about it again?
Ah.
You know, or, you know, something else that's simple that the city manager is already worked out. The consent agenda is to take care of a lot of business so that you don't spend all of your time talking about things that have basically been already approved. So,
So then we probably should maybe be re-educated on how to use that instead of just not using it.
and it's a different issue. I understand that, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry I got you going down that path, but I was just trying to give you some thoughts on how to get away from embarrassing either yourselves or the intended recipient of an honor or an award that you want to get.
Can I make a suggestion? I don't know if it would need to be put into the policy handbook, would, probably would. So if a commissioner wanted to give a key, had that, or whatever award, that they bring it to the city manager, we try to have at least a one-on-one, at least monthly. So he could debate, he could have the conversation with each commissioner independently.
That's a
No,
sunshine
that
violation.
that would be a sunshine violation. It would be polling commissioners.
Yep.
And
Oh,
so
okay.
we
All right.
cannot do that.
Well, you can't debate it in the sunshine, then embarrassment be what it is.
Just throwing out there my thoughts. You guys are the ones that run the show, so.
No, I mean, if, and I'll just put it out there, I think it was recommended for Representative Cheney to get the key to the city because of the funding that she was able to get us, last year. However, there's debate, or there's reports that this year, she just kind of wrote us off because she wasn't able to get the contact with the city that she felt she was deserved. So there's a debate there. Does she get the key to the city or she doesn't? If she doesn't, embarrassment be what it is, it's just the way that the board voted.
And since Commissioner Kerr brought this up, what I was actually getting at when I listed my criteria was, I don't think someone should get the key to the city for doing what they were either hired or elected to do.
And that would be part of the whole debate in the sunshine.
I mean, they would have to go really above and beyond, not just get a bill passed,
Like
which is their
5 years in a
job.
row, this individual was able to get us funding, or, but even then, and to your point, but that would say that she was above and beyond a friend of the city. But it would at least be a debate, and if
Right.
part of us felt that she did, and part of us felt that she didn't deserve it, then so be it. It is what it is. You have to have thick skin to be a representative anyway, or a senator.
I kind of think that, Tom, I'm going to take liberty that maybe you were thinking more along the lines of public people than elected officials being debated at the dais.
Yeah, most of
The
the time,
embarrassment.
when I've seen the key to the city given away, it's usually a resident or
Yeah.
business owner. I mean, I've received the key to the city in one city, but yeah, it doesn't happen very often in most cities.
The way I look at the key is not just to say thank you for what you have done, but also encourage them to do more. When I go to Tallahassee and I see, for instance, excuse me, I look at senator's wall and they have a key to a specific city, I look at that and I say, that's really nice. I would love to see the name of Madeira Beach right up there in Tallahassee in one of the, or more of our elected officials. I think it gives good recognition. It brings positive to our city. It encourages people to do more. It recognizes, it gives more recognition to our city. So it's not just about us giving a key and recognizing somebody. It's also what that key and that recognition does for us in return.
So I think the question is, the debate over who would get it would come at the time of nominating somebody. The question is, how do you feel about having the key to the city issue as a separate resolution from our handbook so that we could take some time to put our thoughts to paper, maybe share that with Robin, bring it back to our next
Yes.
workshop, and then we can move forward with the handbook because everyone is happy with the way the handbook is now, and we can just vote on that at our next meeting.
Well, I
Would
like
that be
idea.
acceptable? Is
Separate resolution.
Yes.
I would agree.
that okay, Tom?
Absolutely.
And then our homework is to,
Your homework
So-
is to go home and read what was provided by Attorney
Right.
Trask and
but to provide criteria that we
provide what
individually
you
think
want
would be
individually.
good.
And
Got it.
then, that way, when we come back, we can all, and we'll have it because we can have that as part of our packet, so we can read it prior to getting here and be able to have discussion and write something that would be okay, right?
The way that it was done in Oldsmar is there was a work session set aside just to discuss ceremonial item policies. And obviously, you can see in the one that I provided to you, there are like 6 or 7 of them, so they spent a whole lot more time on it. But it was a separate work session, and then we got direction from the council as to, okay, what do you want your policy to be, and how are we going to enact that, and that type of thing. So here, if you're only going to be talking about the key to the city and not proclamations or certificates or, other types of honorarium, then, it won't take that long to talk about it and get it done, so. And I'd be happy to provide you with, other ceremonial policies, but I wasn't able to find any other. Maybe the city clerk's office would be, could ask her fellow city clerks as to whether or not they're aware of any, but
Do that.
yeah, those were the only ones I could find.
Are we good with that, everyone? Okay. Next on the agenda is City Manager Captain Melvin Jackson, Pinellas County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. We have with us this evening, he's going to come up and introduce himself. We have Captain Melvin Jackson, Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. Captain Jackson recently took over the role of overseeing the agreements with contract cities, such as the agreement that Madeira Beach has with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. As you're aware, we contract with the Sheriff's Office for all law enforcement related activities, from patrol to anything else that we might need, investigators, detectives, canine, et cetera, et cetera. And in the time I've been here, they've done a fabulous, fabulous job on all sides from patrol. We'll see this weekend at the Seafood Festival, the mobile command unit that the Sheriff's Office has, and you'll see obviously a lot of deputies. You'll see some interesting new, I guess I'll call it technology, but to keep the public safe at this weekend's event. But I do want to introduce Captain Jackson, who's been with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office for quite some time. Some of our residents, some of our staff recall that Captain Jackson was once assigned out here to Madeira Beach. So, but I'll turn to Captain if you please introduce yourself.
Thank you, thank you. So I'm Melvin Jackson. Just a little bit about me, native Floridian, an Air Force veteran, and I've been here at the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office for the last 19 years. My current assignment, a part of my duties is the contract city liaison. I'm also our SWAT team commander. I run our youth education and administrative services division. And prior to this assignment, I was our North District commander, overseeing the 3 contract cities that we have up there. So as the city manager mentioned, my first probably 5 years here at the Sheriff's Office were spent here as a deputy assigned to the city of Madeira Beach. So it's very humbling, to say the least, to come back in this capacity to be able to, again, serve the citizens of the city of Madeira Beach. So I'm very, very grateful and appreciative to be here. So thank you very much for having me tonight, allowing me to kind of come out and put a name with the face. So,
Great. Thank you.
any questions of me?
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners, any questions?
No questions. Welcome. Thank you.
Nothing but good things to say about
Congratulations. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
This is home, right?
Absolutely. Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank
We're
you.
very happy to have you here.
Very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kit.
Next on the agenda is John's Pass dredging.
So Mayor and Commission, to give you an update as to where we are, both the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection still have the dredging permits, still reviewing back and forth with our contractor, Aptim. I will have an Aptim representative here at the April 16th meeting. They did provide an update, and we had a few questions from the prior, and I'm going to pull up. So from the timeline that I had provided to all of you at a prior meeting, I did have Aptim provide some responses to a couple of the questions regarding the timing and the processing, and because this has been an ongoing project for more than 2 years. And so Aptim received a permit from the Florida Department of Transportation, which was required because the dredging will take place mostly under the Florida Department of Transportation right-of-way underneath the bridge between Madeira Beach and Treasure Island. So they stated, why such a long time to submit, had to obtain the permit from FDOT before proceeding with the other 2 applications, which were finally done in July of 24. As you can see through the timeline, just comments going back and forth, and when the DOT issued the permit, the response back really for just this current calendar year, the request for additional information from both the FDEP and the Corps, there's highlighted in yellow up on the screen are the responses and the reasons for the timeline and what would appear, look to be longer than normal for the review. So there were some in the last couple of months regarding the time period. As is listed, Aptim reached out, they heard back, meetings were scheduled, meetings were held. There was an easement request which was provided to the city. We immediately reached out to the adjacent property owner. We obtained a construction easement access. There was a site visit in January, that occurred in December. Aptim was contacted in October to obtain the easement that I just mentioned, which was then submitted in December when it was communicated back to the city that an easement was required. There was a site visit that occurred in January of this year, and just more dates are listed in this reply as to what transpired. And the item of Aptim sending information to the Corps and to FDEP, it seems FDEP has replied, that they did receive the additional requests for information, whereas from the Corps, there was some time that elapsed. And as you can see, Aptim did reach out to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers a couple of times, but did not hear back. They do list on here that they've been told by FDEP 21 days after submittal to receive a follow-up and 28 days for the Corps to receive a follow-up. What they're going to do going forward is as soon as they submit information to both agencies that they request and follow up with request an email and follow up with a phone call to ensure that both agencies have received the information that Aptim submitted to them. The most recent request for additional information from January, the Corps stated that they had not received it, and they finally responded on March 13th, stating, well, we haven't received anything from Aptim or the city of Madeira Beach, but it's, according to Aptim, they did reach out to them in February to see what happened, but received no response. So again, as I stated, Aptim will make sure that they do follow up to make sure that the information is received. So now where we are right now is just waiting on information from both They have the information that FDEP and the Corps have the information from Aptum that both of the agencies requested, and they followed up, they have that information, and we will follow up and wait for any responses that both agencies may have. And again, the goal is to get this completed before the end of this calendar year. Hopefully in April, we may have a better timeline as to when the permits will be issued, and then the bidding for it and how to, again, ensure that this gets completed by this year. I did submit a request for the extension through the end of December, and I followed up a couple of times. They stated they were going to send me a documentation. I have not received a final documentation, but I will follow up again this week.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners? Comments?
All right, so when Apkin sends plans, let's say, to Army Corps, could they copy the city on their
Yeah,
emails?
I'm copied on them, but I can certainly copy the commission just so you're aware of what's
Yeah,
been submitted.
'cause I think some things have fallen through the cracks possibly, but if you are copied or this commission is copied on their communication with FDP and Army Corps, then we know that communications occurred, and, you know, we may want to use an elected official to make a phone call if it needs to be. These things do happen pretty often. So, but we need to obtain that permit as soon as possible.
Yes.
Comments? Comments, commissioners?
Not really. It's just too many fingers in the pot, but they're all required, so. It's,
I cannot tell you how upset and irritated I am by the whole process. Number one, I asked those questions because when you look at the timeline, it just doesn't make sense. And I also read, it just does not make sense to me that they had a meeting in October or September, and they did not provide the follow-up until January. And when I looked at what the follow-up was, what the questions, what they wanted from Aptum, and I'm not an expert, but some of it looked to me like things that should have been part of the original application. It just did not make sense to me why, at this point in the game, that the Army Corps of Engineers is asking for basic things that should have been basic information. I mean, we started the project off, and Aptum went and had a one-on-one, a pre-permit planning meeting. So if you've ever been to one of those, that is when you go sit with the person and they tell you what they want. And they're typically pretty black and white on what the requirements are. And if Aptum is a professional that we hired that is supposed to be able to do this and know what they're doing, I feel like if I'm reading it and going, well, why wasn't that part of the original? And the other thing that I really take issue with is, where's the sense of urgency? Number one, the sense of urgency fell through the cracks on the part of the city. So if the city's copied, and I don't agree that we should, as a commission, be copied on the correspondence, because we should not be corresponding and getting muddled into that. I think getting better and more timely updates would be my opinion. But when the project, we are looking at the possibility of losing the money to dredge Johns Pass if we can't complete this project by December 31st. And we've all known that for several months now. They had a meeting in September. They don't reply until January. FDEP gave a response within days that they had received their response. So if you get your response from FDEP saying response has been received, but the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers doesn't, and then supposedly you email them and they still don't email you back, and you call them and you don't get a return phone call, their office is in Tampa. And I feel like if our city is copied on the emails, there's got to be some sense of urgency and responsibility by, in this case, it is the city manager who's project managing this from our end, has got to follow up and see that if you've sent out if the information's gone out and nothing has happened in 3 months, there's a problem. And we've discussed this, that once we receive the permit, we're 45 days a bid process. That's after the drawings are completed. So the drawings have to be completed, and that's not going to happen overnight. And then we have to go out to bid. That'll take a minimum of 45 days to accomplish. And I understand that once we get to that point, that it's a pretty quick dredging process, the actual work itself, but we're going to be in hurricane season. What if we got a hurricane? I mean, there's so many variables that could change what we can do once we receive the approval. And I guess I just feel like, and we've had it offered by our state representatives to assist us if we need help in making a phone call, or, I mean, we have got a federal elected official who would reach out on our behalf, Anna Paulina Luna. She has contacts with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Representative Linda Cheney has contacts with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. She got us the money. She would do anything to help us get it along. The reason she's irritated with us now, and rightfully so, is that she got the money, and when she asks for an answer, she can't get one. And I just feel like, I mean, I'm just saying it to hear my own voice, but I just feel like we're not managing the project on our end and imposing on Aptum the sense of urgency and questioning them. I would personally be calling them every day. They would be so tired of seeing my phone number come up that they'd drive to the U.S. Army Corps. They would get an answer. They wouldn't be, and just to close this out, when they recontacted the U.S. Army Corps on, I believe it was the 13th, I had already received an email from a news reporter who a local citizen had reached out to the Army Corps and got a response almost immediately that they were waiting on the city to provide information requested in September. And that that looks bad. There's no way to make that look good on where's our sense of urgency, where's our commitment, what are we doing on the single largest project we have going in our city currently that's been going on now for over 2.5 years. And I had requested that Aptum be here tonight because I would like to ask those questions. And to me, it's easy for them to write back their responses, but it just doesn't add up. There's no sense of urgency there.
Make sure that it is. I've already expressed that to them.
I mean, at this point, that's all we can do. The players are all assigned. It's not like we can select
No.
someone new.
I'd like to see, Robin, I would like for you to get more on them and more involved in the day-to-day of this and follow up and provide weekly updates on what they've done or what they're doing to push it forward. It would be terrible if we ended up losing this. I mean, regardless of what anybody thinks about the project, whether they're pro the project or anti-project, it's a project we were awarded, and to end up losing it would be.
No, we're proceeding to get it completed before the end of this year.
Comments? Next on the agenda is the Gulf Beaches Public Library fiscal year 26 budget.
We received a request from the library. It's in the packet to an extension for them to present their fiscal 26 budget until July 15th. So they made that request. I'm not sure if there's any action that we need to take, but just to let it be known that they did make that request, and I'm sure we will follow up and make sure that they do provide the budget by the date that they stipulated, July 15th.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners, comments?
Yeah.
Doesn't really, I mean, we're just in the beginning of budget season. I don't see it as an issue, so.
Yeah, Helen Price is very organized, has this together. I'm sure if she says it'll be ready by July 15th, I'm sure it will.
I agree. Next on the agenda is city information dissemination texts.
So we did reach out and we do have now an option for really anyone out there, but of course we're promoting for our residents, businesses, or even visitors to sign up for our short message systems or texting option. We did start to disseminate the information. It went out with the normal email that we send out about meetings, activities. I don't know how many have signed up just yet, but we will continue and we'll issue this information over and over and encourage people to sign up. And we were hoping to get the first text out for this weekend's upcoming event. Just to mention, there's an event, the alert that there will be likely some traffic issues or delays on Gulf Boulevard, particularly Friday evening and Saturday throughout the day, possibly Sunday throughout the day, but we will get the texting out there.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners?
Mr. Gomez, where do they go to sign up for this? I mean, it's already in place then, right?
Yes, so it's, I think, just on our website. Anybody that is signed up for the city's email would have received that request via the email, but we'll make sure it's easy to find on the website.
Yeah, and
as well.
if they're not signed up for it, the text messaging would be perfect for them.
Yes.
But I need, so it'll just be on a clearly intuitive spot on the website?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll make sure that's on.
My question would be, is there any ability to limit what you receive? Some people may want to receive any alerts, hurricanes coming, weather, something that's important, life safety, just alerts to the city, but they don't want to receive an email about every event that's coming this week. They get their information in other ways. They don't want to text, say, see you at the seafood festival, or we're having the carnival, or there should be different levels of alert for a text.
I thought when we originally talked about this, it was more for emergencies, not for, I mean, it appears the way that it's written that it's a marketing list. So are we using it for marketing, or are we using it
No,
for
it'll-
important
Yeah,
messages?
and that's what it said. We didn't get in time to change it, but it'll be for what was discussed for, like I said, this weekend, it would be expect traffic, event, seafood festival event, expect delays on Gulf Boulevard.
Comments?
Just for emergency purposes. I don't think people want to hear anything else. And we're using this text message approach just because sometimes websites fail and electricity's out and things in that nature. So I would just stick with the emergency.
Well, actually, real quick, I would be on the other side of the page. I believe that a lot of people want to get involved in community activities, and then I didn't hear about it, or I didn't remember it, or whatever. I think it's a great way for people to remember Trash Pirates on Saturday mornings, just something quick, and I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea.
Robin, aren't there two ways to get text messages? I mean, this is new. Before, when you would get, it was emails that would come about things that were going on. My personal opinion is that when I brought it up, my thought process and goal on it was it came directly out of the hurricane, that individuals did not have the information that was important, hurricane-related, and couldn't get the information because they didn't have the internet, they didn't have, so I saw this more as an emergency information portal than we're having a party or there's seafood festival, or you can get all those things in a different way, but and I mean, I'm kind of indifferent to it, other than I don't want people to opt out of it because they're being overwhelmed with marketing things. But at the same time, I don't want them to have to go in and choose what they want to get text messages on, because if they don't text that emergency alert stuff, they're not going to get that. And that's the part that post-hurricane, our residents really struggled with. Things like the trash to the curb, right? Where does it go? Not using black trash bags. If you use black trash bags, just slice them open and they'll pick them up. Though that sort of information that people otherwise didn't get. It was posted on Facebook, it was posted on our webpage, but I go to the website to look for stuff and I can't find it. I go to Facebook to find things and I can't find it, because if it's not the last thing posted or at the top, you miss it. I really see this should be more of a tool for the important things, not the fun things.
So these types of services are used, just like the county has for Ready Pinellas, are things you would need to know from one day to the next.
Yep.
That's why I said we would use it as a traffic. If Gulf Boulevard gets shut down because of whatever reason, then we would use it to notify Gulf Boulevard closed, or that when an incident happens. So yeah, we're not going to use it for special events or I mean, I think this was just what came when we requested to have it added, and we'll change the wording, but we will, just to give you an example of what went out, but we will make sure that it is for emergencies, and that's kind of what we had, that was the intent of it, but this was the wording that we were provided by the company. But we will correct it and make sure that it is only for when there's an urgency or immediacy to get information out.
Yeah. I think when people see marketing lists, they're
Yeah,
not going to
it's not-
sign up for
right.
that. That just, I'm going to get spammed and I don't want to be spammed. Comments? Okay,
It can always be improved upon once it's implemented
absolutely.
on what's being distributed.
Yeah, I agree. Next on the agenda is community development, post-hurricane update, recovery, rebuild, permitting, FEMA, and FDIM.
Hello, I'm Marcy Forbes. I'm the Community Development Engineer. For our hurricane recovery updates, we did post, I believe it got posted today, our numbers for permits. And to date, we've issued 1,570 substantial damage notifications. Of those, approximately 1,400 have been to residential and 190 or so to non-residential. So those are the number of determination notifications that have gone out. I suspect I'm hopefully within 100 or so properties that still are waiting for letters. Those are just under review and in the process. So I'm hoping by the next workshop, we will at least completely have notified all the residents of their determinations. Some people are waiting for various reasons, but most people who are anxious to get them have come in and met with us, and they get a pretty quick turnaround on that notification. The remaining are also probably post-firm homes that had limited to no damage, so those will come out soon. And of course, we're working towards getting all of the commercial notifications out. As far as permitting, with our numbers that recently released for interior remodel permits for residential, we've processed and or have in review a total of 727 remodel permits. So I do want to stress to the public, if you've done any work within the city of Madeira Beach, demolish, remodel, whatever, and it's over $500, you have to pull a permit for that. So with that being said, there are very few residents that shouldn't be pulling a permit, even for the post-firm homes that had drywall damage at grade and things like that. So One of the things we're doing is we are going through, there's around approximately 400 people who have received their notification, but have not subsequently pulled any demo permit or any permit associated with storm repairs. We also have approximately 300 or more who have pulled demo permits, but have not pulled the subsequent repair and remodel permit, and that is critical as well. We will be going through and cross-referencing people who have received notifications but haven't pulled permits. The other thing we'll be looking at is, as a community, and all the communities in Florida and around the US enter into a info sharing agreement with NFIP. And because we're in that agreement, we get a list of all properties who file a flood insurance claim. So I have a list that is current through March 4th of all properties that have made flood claims. That is protected under the sharing as far as public information. So it is protected, password protected, and cannot be shared with the public. We're only allowed to discuss those claims directly with the homeowners themselves. But we do have that. And that will be one of the metrics by which we expect to be audited by FEMA, is they will try to reconcile homeowners who have filed flood claims against homeowners who have permits. So we're asking the public to please come in and pull a permit. We recognize, the real part of this is people have pulled out the drywall, replaced the drywall, and went on with their life. We get it, it's human nature. So we will be issuing after the fact permits, and we will be doing inspections, and based on a case-by-case basis, depending on the level of damage, the work that was done, our building official will work to figure out exactly what has to be done to open the permit, issue the permit, and then close the permit out. But we need the opportunity to work with the homeowners to get this done. It is extremely critical. By getting this permit, you allow us, the city, to be the face of everything that's happened in Madeira Beach and be the ones that are sitting across the table from FEMA taking ownership of our recovery actions. If you don't have a permit, I can't fight for you. But if you have one, and I've had the chance to review it, and we've gone through all the proper channels and done our due diligence, then I'll fight like hell for every resident here, for every permit they pulled and all the work that they had to do, because it's been difficult. So give us that opportunity. Please come in and get the permits. For everybody who's watching, for everybody who can tell their neighbors, please, please, please come get a permit. We will be expected to do code enforcement action, and that is not going to be any fun, and it'll be a big stress on the community. So if you can get in and do that, then we don't have to go through the code enforcement. We don't have to spend the time doing that. We can dedicate it towards getting you back in your home. So if you filed a flood insurance claim, please come in. If you've already done the work, we're going to work with you, but please come in and get those permits. I can't say that strongly enough. So that's one of the biggest things I wanted to share tonight was the numbers that we're up against. We're not nearly seeing the number of interior remodel permits that we should be seeing. So we need to get those numbers a little more corrected. We still have open hours, so please go to the website. We have them typically 2 to 3 days a week, and then every other Saturday we're hosting them. Those are still very good turnouts with the public. So we still have people coming in, asking a lot of questions, checking them, and so that's still going really well for the most part. Most everybody who comes in now is somewhere in the process, and they know what to bring and how to go through the process. As you guys know, we did have the building official who left. We were able to very quickly get in a subconsultant building official with the building inspector, and they're doing amazing work. We were lucky to have gotten somebody who, Kathleen Croteau, she has over 20 plus years experience as a building official in barrier island communities or coastal communities, and she is familiar with what a community goes through during disaster recovery. So she's doing everything in her powers to get those permits out the door, to get the homes inspected, and to work with her inspectors to get these homes inspected. So that's gone much better than we could have ever anticipated. So that's been going really well, and she's been a great depth of knowledge for everybody. So it's been really good. We've gotten a lot of good public feedback too from her team, so that's been really nice. Another thing I do want to share with you guys, and I know we've touched on this before, but there is a Florida statute that says if you're pulling an owner-builder permit, you're not allowed to sell or lease your property for 1 year following that. So if you plan to sell your property, please hire a contractor, let them take the ownership. I've already received an email, or I'm included on some correspondence with a local community where an owner-builder did their own work. The person who bought it is finding all the defects and is now filing a lawsuit against that homeowner, the person who sold it to him. And because there is a Florida statute that governs that, that will also be to the detriment of the homeowner. So please hire a contractor if you're thinking about selling your property. It's gonna be very important in the long run. Let's see. First permit. We have the open hours, which I discussed. Just don't want to make sure I don't miss anything. One of the things I did want to reiterate with regarding to permit fees, it was touched on earlier, but permit fees are for the individuals who own the home during the event. So we will be charging permit fees for new owners, whether it's a new build or a repair, but we have very reasonable permit fees, so that should not be an issue for anybody. So but we will be taking care of that. We were fortunate enough, and I'll let the mayor maybe speak a little bit to this, but we were fortunate enough to get some FaceTime with FDEM and FEMA in the last week or two. That was really good. I do feel like they're getting a really good grasp on the struggles, maybe how the NFIP works and things like that. So I know that I'll let the mayor, I'm assuming you maybe want to touch on that a little bit, but I appreciate you having included me on that meeting. There's so many things I want to say, so let's make sure I can keep this concise. Another thing too is condos. If you are a condo owner or in a condo and you have work going on, please pull a permit. Like I previously said, even if you're cleaning up the demolished slabs underneath your building, you need to get a permit. If you're working with a contractor who also thinks they don't need a permit, find another contractor. You do not want unlicensed people doing work on your property. Condos are critical. All the work being done will need to be properly documented. You're gonna want that when your next milestone inspection occurs. And if you have work that was done and there's no documentation of permits, engineered drawings, this will be an issue. So please tell all of your condo owner friends, if you're a condo owner yourself, make sure whatever your HOA is deciding to do, you have pulled a permit. We do have a lot of work going on. If you are issued a stop work order and you continue to do work, it is a felony during a state of emergency. So our building official clarified for us that if there's a state of emergency and you continue to do work after a stop work order, it comes with a pretty hefty penalty. So please share that with any condo work that you're doing. After that, I'll let you guys ask any questions, but I do want to I feel like I always forget to thank everybody. I want to thank Robin for all that he's done, the support that he's given us. We wouldn't be where we're at without being given the freedom to adjust and move on the fly and to change course when we needed to, add things we needed to do. And we have an amazing commission. It's been wonderful working with all of you. You've all done so much for the community, and you guys have supported us because you know how hard we've been working behind those doors. So I appreciate that, and I can't thank the staff that I have, that we have here. They've just been amazing. Joe's back there looking at permits right now and approving them. He doesn't stop. And the interaction with the public has been, for the most part, really, really good. When they come in, sometimes they come in pretty upset, and we get it. But usually when they leave, they feel like, we always try to have them leave feeling accomplished in some way. I had a couple come in on Saturday. They'd been here day after day after day after day, and Monday morning I was able to get their permit, and they sent me a text thanking me. So I am as excited as they are about that. So continue to send people to us. We will help everybody in any way, and we had a couple here on Saturday. I think Robin said they were probably here for 6 hours, maybe the entire
5 time. hours.
5 hours. But we got them across the finish line. So we'll be as dedicated as you are and sit here as long as we need to. with that, I don't know, Jenny, would you like to add anything?
I just wanted to talk about the LMS, so I can follow up if anybody on commission would like to comment on what Marcy is talking about.
I would just like to applaud Marcy and her staff.
Thank you, and great job, Marcy, Jenny, Andrew, Jay, Joe, and the rest of the team, you know. Getting back to what you were saying concerning, most everyone understands the process. What is the timeline now? What do you think within, as we progress and as we continue to move forward, catching or finding out some of the people that didn't really follow the rules? You know, your timeline on, is it within a year, you think?
No, I suspect that within the coming months, we're going to have a plan in place to start kind of getting those letters out. We will start with courtesy, but we are going to be very firm about what our expectations are. So our plan is within the next 2 months, we should see a pretty strong code enforcement response.
We already have starting lists, so trying to figure out when we start those courtesy code enforcement letters, what that looks like, what the time frame looks like, as well as revamping our code enforcement staff. We do have a code compliance officer who is leaving in the beginning of April. So we're retraining staff on code enforcement and having more people as well within code enforcement.
So yeah, the timing is probably very, very important considering the fact that hurricane season's right around the corner again, right?
Exactly.
And also, what is the stop work order? How many stop work orders are there now in Madeira Beach?
Let's see, let me see if it got provided. I know this week we had to issue at least 2 of them. I don't know that
There's-
that
yeah.
number.
We probably have at least a dozen, but we can
Dozen?
get that information. I mean, I can think of 5 off the top of my head, but it's not dozens or, you know, there's
Okay.
a few.
That's all the questions I have, but once again, thank you for all your guys' hard work, great team you have, and thank you very much.
So I have a question. After the fact permits, is there a penalty?
So I think that's something that needs to be discussed. I would like there to be, but if we've charged 0 permit fees, then typically it would be a 5 times. But I say I'd like to, but you don't, you know that people just kind of did innately what they wanted to do. So I think if we can get them rectified quickly, that would be great, and get them in the door. But as of right now, I don't think we really touched on how to address that. If you were a property owner, you did the work, but now we've technically charged you 0 permit fees. I don't know if there's a caveat for that, if any have thoughts on that.
I know, we were talking about this today and I think yesterday as well, the after the fact permits. And we will be bringing at the next BOC workshop, Finance has some updates to the fees and collection manuals. So that's one of the topics that we wanted to touch on is the after the fact permits with the $0 fee for those owners prior to the storm. And then also clarifying that if you're a new owner, that you still have to pay the normal fees. So that is something that we will be bringing to the board next BOC workshop. So definitely be thinking about what that looks like. We'll also be talking about, some suggestions from our end.
I know that we have a neighboring county that is, and I won't say this exactly right, but the gist of what they're doing is giving a deadline. You either get in here and pull your permits by X day, or you will begin paying fines and you will be responsible then for permit fees. So I think that the courtesy part, so there's some letters already going out to people who haven't pulled permits.
Yes.
And all they need to do is just,
Come in
if they,
and-
right, if they didn't do any work, because I've gotten the phone calls. If you didn't do any work in the property and you had cement board walls and terrazzo floors and all you did was open your front door and your back door and sprayed it down with the water hose, you didn't replace anything, send your pictures into the city to planning, to the planning department. They'll put it in the folder for FEMA and you'll be fine. If you have work to do or you've done work, just go in and pull the permit. It's not a big deal. Nobody's going to punish you currently. But at some point, you're probably going to have to draw a line in the sand just for the FEMA purposes. Yeah.
We're also going to bring or discuss reinspection fees. We seem to be, whether we do have a fee if it was an error or something that the contractor did not do, but they knew that they should have. We'll discuss that and take a look as to whether there's a fee, because I think we have been having a few where they've had to go back multiple times to inspect for the same item.
I'm just curious how you figure out which property is subject to penalty. And just, let's say you have 3 properties in a row and you had 30 inches of water come across that area. A house on the left and a house on the right, you have permits for. The house in the middle, you don't. However, they had purchased flood protection. They may have terrazzo floors and I don't know, what kind of,
Cement board walls
Cement
or
board walls.
plaster.
so is the inspection in that center home, even if they do pull a permit, say, okay, we didn't really do a whole lot, but we replaced 6 inches of drywall. I'm a contractor. I do it all the time. We dried it out. How do you inspect that that they did what they said they did and it is dry and it's not moldy behind the walls? And I mean, do you have tools to be able to do that? Or would you go to that extent?
So I do know that we use moisture meters, so you can kind of tell behind the walls, like what kind of moisture is there. If somebody can provide pictures and allow us to do an inspection and we can visually verify that the damage they say they received appears to be what they received, they did pull the permit, then as long as we can get them in the door and get that permit issued, then we wouldn't want to charge them any fees. I think we're going to get into trouble where people who dig their heels in and say, I didn't get anything, I'm not giving you any pictures. And we go down that road. And that's one of the things that we're going to have to discuss with Tom about, we'll proceed forward with action, but it's hard when if you don't have the supporting data, we're very limited on what we can do. All we can do is show FEMA,
Okay.
we communicated with them.
So I would think on the cities, what the city needs to do is document what they've done. They've approached the homeowner. Homeowner replied, I had flood protection. We didn't get any water in the home. Or they replied, we did have minimal damage. We repaired it. We didn't feel it was to the extent that a permit was required. We offered the permit for free of charge, and they declined that offer. End of story.
Exactly.
Or they accepted that offer, and we went in and inspected, and this is what we found after inspection. Now, the moisture meter, 6 months later, what's that really going to
Right,
tell you?
yeah.
It's not going to tell you there's mold behind the walls or there's not.
Yeah.
But at least you're documented on what you did.
Right.
Now, I don't know where that takes you as far as FEMA's required. Is that documentation enough?
Right.
Or did you need them to expose some areas, sample areas in the walls? I don't know.
Right.
That would be a question for FEMA.
And I think when it comes down to that stuff, it's going to become our due diligence within the ordinances that we have, the Florida Building Code we follow, and what the Florida statute allows. And I think as long as we take them as far as we reasonably can within those areas and we've reached a dead end, then we have the document, like you said, and that's what
Right.
FEMA will
So
get.
basically, you need to document every property in Madeira Beach.
Yes.
That is correct. And we are, Jenny and I are looking at a software program that helps during post-recovery with the SD letters and a myriad of other things. I do know that Clearwater used it, and obviously their recovery has gone seemingly very well. And they use that software. I know St. Pete Beach is about to initiate, they're looking at using that as well. I suspect they'll make a decision here pretty soon. So we're looking at it as well. And what that will do, like you said, is every parcel will have, it'll be a registry of every parcel, and it will document all of these type communications and be able to help issue the SD letters, draft them, track them, create an interactive dashboard for the residents to be able to use. So we're trying to go to something like that, which I think would give us the ability to do much more real-time data delivery than we would have ever been prepared to do unless having gone through it, knowing what we need.
Right. No, I don't think you have any option. I think it's a
Correct.
great plan.
Agreed.
I also wanted to talk about LMS. So LMS is a local mitigation strategy, and every 5 years, we have to do an update. This is with Pinellas County, so it's with all the communities in Pinellas County. So you'll see this come back up at your next workshop as well, just talking about the 2025 update of the 2020 LMS. Through LMS, there is HMGP grants. That's a hazard mitigation grant program. So Pinellas County has received a total of $416 million for the HMGP grants. So we will be looking at applying for some of those, most of them being through Public Works. So we've already identified a few. And that's due, the internal deadline is May the 16th. So we will be applying for those grants. Through my call with LMS, or my recent call, they were asking, this is very preliminary, so you know that we have the Elevate Florida grant going on. And the state has $400 million for Elevate Florida, which roughly will cover 950 applications. Currently, I think Robin just had that up. Currently, there are 6.2 thousand applications in the state. So therefore, the state is asking counties through their LMS program if they would like to reallocate some of that HMGP grant funding towards Elevate Florida. So the Pinellas County LMS has asked us to come to the board and ask, is that something that you would be willing to do? What does that look like? This isn't yes, this is definitely what we're doing. They just want to get a feel if that's something that you'd be open to, and then Pinellas County will look through all the communities. Most people say yes, most people say no, most people say maybe, and then they'll be bringing that to the state, and they'll come back to you to then we'll discuss about it. So right now, thank you, Robin, we have 189 applications. So we do have a lot of applications here in Madeira Beach.
Yeah, this is just data for Madeira Beach.
So we have a lot of applications here. As you know, we have a lot of single family at grade here in Madeira Beach. So this does affect our community quite a bit. And Pinellas County has a total of 2.3 thousand, just to put that in perspective. So what the LMS is asking from you is, would Madeira Beach support taking some of the HMGP money, and that money goes to fund infrastructure projects? So hardening our infrastructure. A lot of them are seawalls, pumps, things of that nature. So taking some of that money and then allocating it to Elevate Florida, or would you rather see all of that money towards public infrastructure?
I'll start us off.
Well, let me ask.
No, go ahead.
Do we have any public comment on any of these items we've been discussing? No, thank you. I wanted to give the opportunity.
Absolutely, I'm sorry. I'm living this, so.
I know you are, so he's probably the best. He'll have the
So,
best answer.
out of those 189 total applications in Madeira Beach, I'd be very surprised if you got 100 of those that actually go through with FDEM grants, free money. And the main reason is because well, there's lots of reasons. If you're in a velocity zone, that means you have to elevate. You cannot rebuild. It's not applicable. You can't do it. B, you have to apply and then just wait. Wait for them to assign you a contractor to elevate your home. That means if that's your only home, that you're living with children, you're living with family, you're living in a rental property. You're not doing anything, and I don't think the frustration's gonna allow them, they're gonna sell their property or whatever. I've spoken with one elevation contractor to ask if they're on the state list. They said they've applied. They're a very prominent elevation contractor in the area. They've applied. They have a state license, but they think it's a cluster over there, and they just use their quote. I should have put quotes around that. Because they don't feel like they have it all together yet. If there's already over 6,000 applications, that means if you put in an application now, when do you hear back about your home? And what happens in between now and then? It just sits there. And I haven't even gotten into the understanding of all the other requirements. So, although it sounds great, the feds are gonna feed the state money, and the state's gonna provide the money to everyone to recover, and it's all grant money, you don't have to do anything. It's not timely. It's very restrictive, and I just don't see it working. Now, you made a great point, Jenny. We're gonna take the funds from public, and we're gonna give it to the private sector, which everybody's struggling. I get it, but I'd much rather see our public roads be lifted, our power lines be buried, our seawalls raised. I think that's going to benefit everyone in the community, not just a few that actually, if they're on the list, they're already on the list. If they run out of funds, I can't see them running out of funds. So my gut reaction is I'd be against it.
Comments?
To maybe oversimplify it, talked about putting money into infrastructure, hardening the city. I'm all about that.
Comments?
There are seawalls that are owned by residents, right? If some seawalls need to be repaired,
So for the HMGP, it's more of public infrastructure. So we would be applying, like one of the projects we were talking about would be the city-owned seawalls and applying for HMGP money for that. And one option, I think Clearwater did this. They had a meeting, a workshop with their board, and they would like to reallocate, I think it was 10 million per Helene, 10 million for Milton towards. So you could say yes, a small, whatever amount, if that's what you would want, and then I could bring that to the LMS just so that they would have that information. Or no, keep it in public, whatever way you would like.
if you were to guess the linear footage of or seawall,
Mm.
I know it's Is it,
Are you residentially or,
publicly owned, in other words, city-owned?
no? I was looking
We
at
wouldn't
Megan.
have a way, I mean, we could go determine, but what we own versus what is privately owned?
Well, the money obviously is going to go to the seawall that's owned by public. And I'm just trying to figure out how much damage have we incurred to these seawalls and how much money. I mean, this is besides the roadways and infrastructure and things of that nature, so.
I mean, we can come back with some of that data, but I mean, did we have seawall damage? Like, just not at the marina, so none out here in the park. Well, a piece that started to sink, but it wasn't the actual wall, it was kind of the walkway up here at the park, and that was filled.
Yeah, I assumed we had some damaged seawall just based on Jenny's.
Well, privately owned seawalls, yes.
And Megan and I just
Cool.
started talking about this, so we can bring back the projects and then, you know, further detail of that. We were just, you know, quickly thinking of projects that could qualify for.
Yeah, like
for
a
this
broad
grant.
example of where we could
Yeah,
see the money
very broad.
going would be seawall, things like
Seawalls,
that, but
yeah.
not saying those are specifically the needs we have, but a broad range of what we could use it towards.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't have to necessarily be damaged, does it? It's just
No,
hardening of
hardening
the infrastructure.
infrastructure.
So it could
Exactly.
be, I would tend to agree with Vice Mayor Kerr. I want to keep our money. I don't want to give any back. If they're going to let us have it, I want it because I'm sure we can spend it. But I would be curious to know where and how we would spend it. What would be the best use of any dollars we would receive? And how we could use that money to better the city outside of seawalls. What else would there, you know, that kind of
Mhm.
thing would be interesting.
I tend to agree with the mayor and the vice mayor. However, I would like to see some more information on this, so thank you.
So Marcy mentioned that she and I attended a meeting, and we did attend a meeting a week ago today. Representative Anna Paulina Luna arranged for a meeting with elected officials. It was originally as a mayor's meeting. They invited all the mayors on the barrier islands to come and meet with her and Cameron Hamilton, who is the director of FEMA currently, and the director of FDEM, Kevin Guthrie. Ended up, I took Marcy because Marcy has been, number one, Marcy and Jenny make a fantastic team together. Jenny was out on maternity leave when the hurricane hit. And as I've stated many times, I think every chance I've had the opportunity, I have complimented Marcy. She picked the ball up and she was a true leader. She is a leader by nature and she's done a great job. And when Jenny came back, the two of them just, they work so well together. They make a great team. So that being said, when I was invited to go to the meeting, I wanted to take Marcy with me when I found out that there were a lot of other cities that the mayors were not going to attend the event. Originally, it was supposed to be mayors only, and the intent was that it would be a closed-door meeting where we would sit with the director of FEMA, the director of FDEM, and we would get to talk about the pains of the residents from the perspective of an elected official, not from the perspective of a city manager who's working in the day-to-days or a building official who's issuing permits. And then when the mayors that are up and down the beach started saying they weren't going to attend for various reasons, I got a phone call from another elected official who is a commissioner that said, well, you know, this person is going to go and that person is going to go. And I talked to Representative Luna's office and this, so I called and spoke with her representative about bringing Marcy. And the conversation that I had was that, well, you know, it really is for elected officials, but there are other people who are. So if you want to, because I said I don't want to change the nature of the meeting. I don't want to do that. But being as there were going to be so many people, Marcy and I went. And it was a great meeting, and I wanted her there for many reasons, but one of them is I go to her often. I probably go see Marcy at least 5 times a week to ask a question. Sometimes I only go 5 times in one day and I don't go any of the other days, but when a resident asks me something that I don't know the answer to, or if something comes up in conversation with another elected official from another town, I want to know the real answer. I want the facts. I don't want to guess. I don't want to pretend like I know. I want to know. So Marcy helps me understand, and she has helped me understand and learn. And I personally feel like I know way more about all kinds of things than I ever thought I was going to know or that I ever need to know. But in the meeting, what we got out of it was, and Marcy was able to share our pains. And I can tell you that in sitting in meeting after meeting, the pains of our city are different than the pains of other cities on the Barrier Islands. We do not share the same pains as St. Pete Beach, Treasure Island, any of the Reddingtons, or the Indians. We probably stand more hand in hand, believe it or not, with Clearwater in just knowing what to do and figuring it out. They probably didn't have to figure it out because they're so large and have been through so much. They have over 1,800 employees on staff. So they are large, right? They spent $77 million so far on the storm. And so they have a lot going on. And their mayor, Rector, has been wonderful for me to talk to and ask things of. But anyhow, we got there, and it was the mayor Rector was there, myself. There was an elected commissioner from Reddington Shores, and we were the 3 elected officials that showed up for the meeting. And we got to talk with the FEMA director and with Kevin Guthrie, the director of FDM. And a couple of the things that came out of the meeting that I thought were important is Cameron Hamilton, who is the FEMA director currently, he's local. His parents own a house and live in Bel Air Beach, or Bel Air or Bel Air Beach. They also own a home in Indian Rocks that flooded. Both of their houses flooded, my understanding. So he's sitting in a position to really help move change in FEMA, and he's living it through his family. Not unlike Marcy lived it as a child growing up and understood from the day the storm hit, she knew what our residents felt like because she had herself lived through that. She had been displaced, her home had been destroyed. So she knew, and so she brings that empathy to the table. So he does also. One of their main goals, his main goal is to overhaul NFIP. He sees the need for FEMA to be a partner to the city, not the big bad wolf that you're afraid of is going to punish you if you don't do everything right. He sees the need to suck FEMA down and put it out to the communities. FEMA's going to always be there, I believe, in some form or fashion because somebody's going to have the money and pass it out. But he sees that the person that can best navigate a storm aftermath is the state and the local municipalities that live in those towns. You'd see that in North Carolina. Somebody can't come from Washington and know how to fix North Carolina after a storm. The people who live here know how to fix it. And so I think over time, and in short time, I think we'll see some changes for the future. That's not going to change where we are today. But they also talked about, so he talked about overhauling NFIP, taking the FEMA and downsizing it back into the municipalities. And they talked about just the different dollars and how things are distributed and getting involved in the LMS. That was one of the things he told us, get involved in your LMS, know what is going on and understand it and be a part of the decision-making. So I think that's important for us to try to dig in and understand what Jenny and Marcy and their team are going to be doing. It was a great meeting. I thought it was really, really good. One of the things that I did take with me is there have been several residents who have come And and I pointed this out to Cameron. We live in a community of aged population. And anybody who was here after the storm saw our aged population come to the Comfort Center, and they still are displaced. They are not equipped to do internet applications for FEMA. And I had a resident who came last week before I went to this meeting, and she came with a folder of papers this thick. And it was her FEMA applications and where she had been approved and denied and approved and denied. And she had gotten approval for housing, but FEMA won't pay her because now she's denied. And she can't, she's in her 60s, very, I mean, healthy, spry seemingly, and she's having a hard time navigating it. So how is the 89-year-old neighbor that she's got supposed to navigate it? And they took that folder full of all the information, and I'm super eager to see what they come back to with me on it. But what I mentioned to them is that we have residents who really need help, and they need help beyond what we can provide. And when FEMA came here and they gave help to the residents, they didn't really give help. What they did was they helped them apply for the $750, and then that was it. They didn't even know they could apply for more than the 750 because the person who sat there with them didn't say, oh, you can get this and you can apply for housing and you could get rental assistance that'll pay you up to $42,000 to go rent a place and live in for however many months that would last instead of living in a hotel. Never mind that you could probably not find something, but there were some properties in Madeira, and this particular individual was able to rent a place on the second floor over at Yacht Club. So she's still close to home and she rents. Anyhow, what they told us in the meeting is that they're working on new software that FEMA would use that would be specific to helping in those types of situations. And the trickle down on it is that they would train local. So he used Luna's office as an example that her staff could be trained to log into that software. If you called, you're on the phone with them, and you're asking them about your issues, they could log right in and help you instead of you having to wait for FEMA because, and they also understood the bureaucratic red tape of FEMA that has slowed us all down. And there's no question and doubt on that. That has been a challenge for everyone. But a lot of things that I took out of it, that software, following that along and seeing where they end up, I see it as such a wonderful thing that would help the local resident because that's something that could even trickle down to us and the future of us helping the residents get through the process. So it was a great meeting, and her office has been a huge partner to us. When we had the mobile command center here from Duke Energy, it was because of her. So it was her meeting that we had that I volunteered us. And so she has really answered the call and been a great help for us as a community. And I look forward to getting more information to share on the follow-up from that meeting. But it was a great meeting.
Yeah, it was really good. And I think one of the things that Kevin Guthrie drove home really for us was at a local level, we need to stay very diligent because in the coming years, there are changes coming, politically within the state of Florida. And he's been a great face and a great advocate for disaster recovery for our state. He's throughout the number 20 months, maybe he won't be, so I'm not sure what he was getting at. But it drove home for me the fact that at a local level, we need to not take for granted the money we're getting. And if there are days and opportunities for the building official day or the city manager day or the mayor day, whatever it is for us to go up there and advocate for our communities, it's very important that we don't lose sight of those opportunities.
Yep. Thank you, Marcy. Any questions?
Thank you for attending. And
Oh, it was
giving
fabulous. Yeah,
big-
it was really great. Anything else? Are we?
We have a full-time mayor. That's fine.
Isn't it great?
Next on the agenda is financial overview presentation through March 2025. Robin?
Thank you, Mayor. And as we've done each of these workshops, we go through kind of where we are financially, revenues, expenses, this current fiscal year. So in your packet up on the screen, we have our chart and graphs and data. The ad valorem tax collection so far for this year, we're just a little bit over 5 million. So we're not too far off what our budget was and close to the prior year. The majority of our property tax collections are in the first half of the year. So we should be close to budget by the end of the fiscal year. As I said during the budget workshop, the tax refunds that have been issued throughout March have been, I think, a lot less than what we had anticipated. Hopefully we'll get a report as to what that total will be, but the impact should be not significant. But we'll keep you updated on that. Our other revenues, communication services taxes, state shared, franchise fees, utility, we are down a little bit on some, others are close to the same time period for prior years. The franchise fees, utility taxes should be less because those are based on actual consumption of utilities, water, gas, electricity. Of course, homes that are unoccupied are generating just the minimum, if any, service charges for water, electricity in particular. So both of those revenues are naturally down, as we do have a few hundred structures where nobody is living in them. We will bring a much more detail to the April workshop for our building permit fee specifically, but you can see obviously our revenues are a fraction of what they would normally be because we did waive permit fees for folks who own their homes when the storms hit, and subsequently have obtained different permits since then. We're not charging fees. Our business tax receipts are pretty much the same. Those were actually due on October 1. But as businesses reopen and new businesses open, then we are collecting the business tax on those businesses. Other fees are a little bit down as well. As we've shared with you, the fire EMS are contractual, so those will pick up as we progress through the year. Sanitation and stormwater, I think what Andrew put on here is really for the whole year. That's why there's a little bit more of a discrepancy on the chart. Same with parking. This is for the whole year in the parking fund as opposed to just October to February. So on page 60 of your packet with the table, October to February revenue comparison, detailed list FY23, 2024, 2025. It appears Andrew put on here the collections for the whole year in the first two columns of numbers. So October to February 2023, October to February 2024, for ad valorem, for permit fees, recreation and marina fees, sanitation and stormwater fees, fire and EMS, and parking from the parking fund. Those are for the whole fiscal year. So they are not just October to February. The 2025 column, the column to the far right, those are current through the first 5 months of our current fiscal year. So we'll get this corrected and actually I'll email you a corrected update to show the comparison. But overall, we're, other than in parking, where obviously we have been down in collections due to the two lots that are still closed, Archibald and Stewart Parks, we're down about 130 parking spaces thereabouts. So, however, the month of, as I mentioned earlier, the month of February, our collections were very close, February of 25 to February of 2024. Keep in mind our parking fee is now $4 an hour compared to $3 an hour last year. That fee, the fee increase went into effect on October 1 of 2024. So the additional revenue is for the current year. We actually had more, it appears more users or more transactions in February of this year than February of last year. But we're reaching out to the company because it looks a little odd. If that's the case, then our revenue should have been a little bit higher, but it appears that the amount of time spent is less per session in February of '25 than in February of '24. But our parking revenue is starting to come back as more visitors, particularly day visitors, has significantly increased throughout February and now in March. Then the next continues on to page 61 in the packet for the other revenues that I had mentioned. And these do appear to be the same time periods rather than an entire fiscal year. Our expenditures by department for the current year, again, we're still well below what we had budgeted to spend for the entire year, and this includes all expenditures per the department and the fund that is listed, which includes all capital. And for example, for stormwater, our revised budget of $11,790,020 is for all capital projects as well. And again, as I shared earlier in the budget workshop, we've deferred a few of the projects. We're not proceeding with everything that we had originally planned, and we'll continue to discuss that as we review this budget and next year's budget as well. Hurricane-related expenses were just under $4.4 million for Helene, a little over $263,000. The majority of the expenses for Helene that we've coded for Helene are for debris removal and the debris monitoring. We've paid a little over $3.2 million for all of the debris removal and the monitoring, which I believe goes through November. Let me take a quick look. I'm sorry, through the actual debris removal through November the 15th, and then the debris monitoring through January 24th. So we will still have invoices that we have not received for debris removal from November the 16th until early January when I think the second week in January when the debris removal concluded completely. So obviously our expenses will grow in the main category of debris removal and monitoring. And then as I continue through this presentation, we will have obviously more expenses as we begin completing repairs. So as we complete the repair to the recreation center building, to the city hall buildings when those occur, to the repairs, milling and resurfacing the Archibald Park lot, repairing the snack shack, et cetera. Those will be expenses that we will incur over the next 6 months, and those will continue to, this will continue to grow month after month. And I meant to say, if it wasn't clear, the majority of damage in homes, I think as we're aware, was from the flooding from Helene. There was some damage, obviously, from Milton, not nearly the same, but for purposes of accounting for the debris removal and the debris monitoring, it's all under the first storm, under Hurricane Helene. The next page 64 in your packet, has the largest vendors for Helene. You can see number one is the DRC for the debris removal through, again, that amount is through November the 15th. We still have a month and nearly 2 months. But again, toward the latter half of the debris removal, there'll still be a sizable, some invoices, and likely that number will double, at least double, likely more. And then the page after that, page 65, the Milton expenses, which again are significantly less than for Helene. So our update to our city infrastructure damages, and again, a considerable amount are public works related for the items that are listed there, everything from flexi-pave to concrete to curb and roads that have been damaged, excuse me, electrical work. That is all detailed on here. Through today, I believe today, the contractor may have finished the Flexi Pave, for example, out, or they'll finish tomorrow before the seafood festival, but there was a lot of work being done out at the village today.
I did not make it back down there towards the end of the day. If anything, they have two of the planters left to put the bonder on, and then they'll complete.
But it's mostly completed, so this lists 75% through earlier this month. We go down through, we discussed briefly the chamber, what used to, had a lease with the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber for the little structure in the village. We cleaned out the structure. We've, I think, had electrical work that was approved, just waiting to put the drywall back in. And we will bring back a proposal in April, or should be in April, excuse me, to repurpose that structure mainly for city usage, but we will bring that back to you for our parking operations to have essentially a location down in the village to assist with all parking related, but also information, ambassador type work for all the visitors that are down in the village. As we continue down, even damages to parking stops, handrails, et cetera, down in the village, and then across the street at Johns Pass Park, the park in the parking lot. And then it just continues on to individual parking lots from 130th North all the way up to the access at 140th. And again, just you can see the notes and the work that's been done to put those back together. All of those accesses and parking lots have reopened. They've been open for a little while. Continuing on to the third page as we go into Tom and Kitty Stewart, we will have a little bit more update on the next here on the agenda, a couple of items later. But again, we're still working for engineering the designs and the drawings for the seawall, and then we'll bid out to put that park back together. And then we continue up through Archibald Park, where most of the work is in process. The wall has been put back together. The curbing and sidewalk damage was being removed earlier this week and will be put back together. And then hopefully starting next week, the milling and resurfacing will commence and should be just a few days or about a week, Megan, for the...
The plan is a little bit later than what we had expected, but should be finished and completed and striped by April 8th.
And to run on the page number 70 on the packet, the final access points, and then as listed there on 133rd, 131st, you see a seawall cap, some bollards and pavers and et cetera, other things that we're waiting for contractors, but all of these to be work in progress. On to recreation, I mentioned the softball field netting has been repaired. We're waiting for the park curbing, but again, as we go through the list, for example, the Rock Park waterfall has been repaired. The splash pad is opened a couple of weeks ago, so that's all repairing. The floating dock has been repaired. And we'll update this list to show what's been completed, but a lot of the recreation has been completed. Except the structure. We're hoping the structure to be completed within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And we've talked or briefed each one of you on the damage here at City Hall, and we still have an engineer. We're meeting with them early next week here in person to go over what was the building and community development down on the first floor and how to mediate that going forward. And I think just about everything at the marina has been put back together, and then a few other, well, these have already been completed for recreation. This just showing the damages from contents and a shed that we had over at the Madeira Beach Fundamental School. And and some other equipment that's already been, I think we received insurance proceeds. We will have at the next, also, the insurance that we've received over $700,000 in insurance proceeds for damages to city property and contents. And then this is just a list of equipment that either is in need to be replaced, has been replaced, or just to show everything that we identified that receives damage. I had mentioned we were going to discuss the snack shack. 2 days ago, or yesterday, our insurance company brought over another engineering firm to take a look at the structure. We're waiting to get their report that we should be getting next week, hopefully, and we will discuss in more detail at the April workshop. But the goal is to put the structure back together. And so we're just receiving more information. Our insurance company did state that the repairs would be covered by insurance to put the snack shack building back together. That is all that I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any public comment?
Public.
Commissioners?
So when do we think we can get a ballpark summary on, I mean, the loss of revenue? We're going to apply to have that loan to us at a 0% interest for 10 years. So, and then the expenses, many are going to be covered by FEMA. When do you think we're going to get to the point where we can actually have a, like I say, a ballpark of what the net of that's going to look like? This storm cost us X amount of dollars that we need to budget for in the next series of years to recover from. Just kind of get a net.
Yeah, we'll get to that at the next workshop because we're halfway through we'll be halfway through our fiscal year, but I'll have Andrew compile and we can give you
Yeah,
where we are.
I
Yeah,
know,
6
I
months
know
into
there are
it.
applications, so nothing's firm until you get it.
Right.
Or get the commitment, but at least a thumbnail.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Comments?
Yes, I just have a quick question, and I'm just responding to citizens out there. So the Thomas Stewart, is that a park? I mean, we call it park, right?
The
Kitty
Tom
and
and
Tom,
Kitty
Kitty-
Stewart
yeah.
is a park.
So, but is it mostly covered by parking? In other words, how many parking spaces are we looking to have there?
There were a total of 14. I think we had 2 handicap, 2 designated toward resident only, and 10 paid parking spaces.
Okay.
And there was a bathroom building, there was a sidewalk, and some landscaping.
Okay. Just want to clear that out for some of the residents out there.
I think we're going to talk about that in a couple of more,
Yeah.
in more detail.
But I think, Commissioner, your question was whether it's a park or a parking lot, or I'm
Yes.
just trying to understand the question.
Well, the
I'm not
name,
sure if I
we
answered
call
it
it, we
correctly.
call it park, right? We call it Kitty
Yeah,
and Tom
it's-
Stewart
it's-
Park. And yet,
Yes,
you know, I mean, I understand in parks, there are always parking spaces, so residents have to go and park there so they can enjoy the parking. I mean, they park there to can enjoy the park, so, you know, how many parkings would you have there so that how many residents can use and enjoy? So I know there's a delicate balance, but it's just a question that I've been asked, and I just wanted to publicly put it out there.
Comments? Do you have any comments, Eddie? The only thing that I would ask is that for a couple of times now, we've seen this same report, and it seems like not all areas are getting updated. If we could have it, I mean, when you bring it to us, it should be updated. And there's just a lot of areas that there's no updates whatsoever, and I'd like to see it so that when we are looking at it, you have a better idea of the dollars if the updates have been put in there, is all. Anything else? Next on the agenda is the marina, city marina.
As we've discussed before about the marina, just wanted to give an overview regarding, again, just an overview. The marina is an enterprise fund, meaning its expenses are covered by specific revenues related to the usage at the marina, which incorporates, obviously you can get fuel, boating fuel. There's a store that sells, you know, sundries and other items that would typically be used for boating or fishing related activities. There's a number of wet and dry slips that are leased or rented by certainly residents and non-residents, first come, first serve. This year's budget of just a little bit over $2 million revenue budget and an expense budget of just under 1.3 million. I think part of the discussion has been the usage of the marina, and in prior years, whether there could be a restaurant, for example, a high and dry, could it be redeveloped and into what would be probably a much more intense usage or beautified, or a variety of different combinations thereof. So the the land is governed by when it was given to the city with conditions that it remain open to the public and for public use only, mainly for marina activities. And Krabby here is in front, who will add obviously a lot more than I can, since the marine manages our city marina. Would be what could it be used for in the future? Can we request changes from the state, and when again it was conveyed over to the city? So, Krabby?
All right, well, I've done some research into the deeds and everything, and most anything that goes to the state for a debt. Now, Tom, if you hear me and I'm wrong on any of this, just please interrupt, because this is all fresh. I've kind of gone through this all this week. You would have to write the governor and get the governor and the governor's cabinet approval for any changes to the deeds. So that would be the step, that'd be the first step. If we wanted to change, like the particular parcel I think we're talking about is where the building's at right now, one of them. And in that restriction, it specifically states that a restaurant is not one of the uses there. And I know that years back, we built the marina to house a second story to it. And that was the idea, that we could put something on top of that, such as a restaurant to rent out, to create a place on the water for more people to come and enjoy, things like that, which there's not a lot of out there. Being a boater, anybody that's a boater, there's not a lot. And the ones that we did have, a lot of them did get severely damaged in the storm, and kind of up in the air on when they're replacing their docks, when they're rebuilding, when they're going. So it's an option I'm totally up for. It's fine by me. I don't see any problems with it. There would be structural things that would be important as to what would it cost to build that structure on top of the existing marina. Would it cost more than just rebuilding the whole structure as one? Knocking it down and starting over again, or is it more feasible to do that? Sorry. It's more feasible to knock it down and start as one, or to add on top of it. Which one costs less money or gives you a better product in the end, depending on the cost. So, but first we gotta get going and get to the state level, which now we have the information of where we need to go. They don't have many meetings on this a year. I think there's 3 more meetings this year and it's too late to make the meeting in June. So we would have to construct a letter from the city, that our attorney would write to the government. We'd probably look at one that's been written before and see what guidelines they went through to try to move this, deed restrictions off of that particular parcel of the marina.
Do we have any public comment? Commission? Comments, questions?
Just to confirm, you think we should do this? This would be for the benefit of the city and for the marina?
I believe it would be, yeah, to get traffic through. I mean, the more people that come to visit the marina, the more people that'll know it there. If it gives them another reason to stop at our marina That is always a good, positive thing for our marina and our city.
Thank you.
May I? Great, Krabby, thank you.
Yep.
So the city received the use of this property from, I thought it was a trustee fund.
There's
you're saying it was
several, yeah,
from-
there's
from
several
the
different
state?
parcels. So,
Right,
you know,
there's
some are,
7 or 8 or whatever it is.
yeah.
Right. So there is no correspondence with that entity any longer. Is that
Now, there
correct?
is remittance that could come to the property. If that's why you'd have to go, I believe, to the governor's level to get the governor and the cabinets to review it, to approve of such situation. And now part of that approval may be going, I'm kind of a little out of my, you
Yeah,
know,
I don't
on
know.
how that works.
Yeah.
But as I've been talking with these people, it's kind of almost how it goes. You got to start there and then,
But it's not like we have a open dialogue with the trustees that, and when I say trustees, I don't know if they're state trustees or they were private.
well, they were,
State.
yeah, they're state. Yeah.
Okay, so it's okay. Enough said on that. What is the relationship, or when did the relationship, do you know, between Public Works and the marina? How did the Public Works start on using the marina, the property listed here?
Well, Public Works kind of had the city kind of had its own parcel that was given to the state. And then the marina, there's another parcel that was given for municipal marina usage.
So they're separate.
So there is separate parcels there.
So you could identify which parcels were actually allocated to the Public Works?
Yes, there's parcels now. I think I got, it's, yeah, there
Yeah,
it
the
is, right
map's
up there.
the map's up on the screen.
Okay, so this is oriented almost as I'm looking at it, just the way it would be, the
That-
bay is on the right, top right, and 150th is on the bottom left.
Yeah,
So
right
you-
where yep,
So you have this long parcel, and parcels 7 and 8, there's not really anything going on there.
Well, there's,
Isn't that where the pumping station is or something?
yeah, 6, 7, and 5, part of 5, that it even, it's old enough to where it has the old city garage and the city buildings in there.
Okay,
This drawing does. And the garage there for Public Works was there as long as I can remember, since I was a kid.
so the street is actually right there on that line there where 7 and 8 are.
Yes, that'd be probably right where the DOT right away
that's
would go
the
down
right
that
of way,
road.
yeah, okay.
Mhm.
All right. Just trying to get oriented here.
Because you can almost make out our driveway there. You know, where the curving
Right.
would be.
Right, I see that. Okay. Well, maybe I see it, I'm not sure, but that's okay. So Public Works, as long as you can remember.
As long as I can
You grew
remember.
up here.
Yeah, yeah. It's been there as long as I can remember, since I was going to that marina when I was a kid.
Okay,
They always had it, it was all fenced off in their own lot.
right.
I mean, I remember it before there was a cell phone tower there. I'm aging myself a little bit.
You remember before there were cell phones.
I do. Got a hold of your buddies with walkie-talkies.
All right. When Rob and I came out, you gave us some of your time.
Mhm.
One of the questions I had was, how does it work with the six-pack charters? Excuse me, I guess I'm gonna get ready to cough. I'm trying to suppress it.
Good.
So much for that. Anyway, how does it work for six-pack charters? They are typically homeowners. They have they have their own private dock. How would it work for them to actually come to the marina in the morning and buy their supplies, their ice, their fuel, and pick up their patrons for the day, whether it's a half-day trip or a full-day trip? And you said, no, that's not allowed.
Mhm.
And I just, I couldn't conceive of that. And so we had the discussion. because honestly, just weeks prior, I had gone out on a charter that I was invited on, and the captain was in Reddington Beach, and parking was problematic at best. So he allowed us to park in a neighbor's driveway that he had all worked out for that particular one. So that inspired me to ask you about that. But that's the key reason you can't have six-pack charters use the marina. Because Parking in what I'm understanding.
Parking and dock space as well.
Is your number one issue for use of the marina property,
Parking.
parking.
Parking's, I mean,
It's a major restriction.
we make it work with what we have. I mean, we had the grunt hunt this past weekend and people just park and find a way in there. I mean,
Oh,
it's not a daily, it wouldn't be sustainable on a daily basis like that
Right.
now. As an event, you know, it is what it is, but on a daily basis, it's just too cluttered, too
Right.
wild to do it in that kind of parking fashion.
So that's a limitation. Yeah, when you don't have parking, you don't have business, in my opinion, unless it's walk up or they're being dropped off. So, I'm just trying to think this through. And so we walked around and that's when we determined that additional fuel would help.
Yep, which that RFP will go out in April for the additional fuel pump. It's been a little delayed just because getting our regular fuel pump back up.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And expanding some, short time docks that can benefit from
Mm-hmm.
the extra fuel station.
Mhm.
And just for supplies and whatnot. But it's real important to me to understand what that relationship was with Public Works, because it's limited amount of space and you're sharing it and it's too tight, in my opinion, for you both to be there. I did read here, some of the things that we talked about, undergrounding the power line, that'd be huge, and that should be pretty simple to do. Some other, there's improvements. This marina should be an attraction for the city. And I start to get passionate because I see it as being just that, an attraction, and not something we're trying to hide behind a solid fence that you don't see from the street. Because, okay, you have to protect the boats, you have to protect the instruments on the boats, but if that's the case, well, maybe we shouldn't be storing boats there. We should be using it for an attraction. And if we did store boats, maybe they should be over there where Public Works is and have that smaller area fenced in with a solid fence, not the whole thing that you see when you're going up and down 150th. In my opinion, we can do so much with what you have over there at the marina that it's an attraction that people are going to want to. We're going to have that new hotel, and I'm repeating myself, and I'm sorry, but you're going to have that new hotel built next to you. There's going to be a lot of foot traffic by there. People are going to want to stop. There's no reason why this couldn't be an attraction for kids to learn how to fish right off your seawalls, place for families to just enjoy. I know you probably do that.
People do that, yeah.
People do that now,
Yeah,
but I think it can be expanded on.
We use our out back, our, patio area. That gets used quite a bit daily and a lot on weekends with people just coming by, hanging out, talking to
Yeah.
friends, and other boaters together. Always kids fishing off seawall. I can't tell you how many kids I've got to catch their first fish off that seawall. I
Right.
mean, kids that are now 18, 19 years old, that I was with them when they caught their first fish. My nephews, both my older nephews who are 25 and 23, caught their first fish at the marina. So, I mean, yeah, we do that. I mean, it's tough though to just get all the public in there and then, I mean, cause you still have to be safe about it. You gotta have, cause there's a lot of moving parts. You can't have fishing hooks swing in and then they get into people's dock lines. So I don't allow fishing like on the fuel docks or anything like that because, hooks can puncture hoses. They get entangled in, you know, people's mooring lines, their dock lines, things like that. So I try to make it to where it's people that have, you know, have their boats in the marina and things like that. Hey, if it's a windy day or something like that, you want to come by, you know, no problem. People within the community, but to just completely open it up. I mean, we do have a fishing pier out here. We have the park out here for those kind of reasons. And I'm all for it. You know me, I'm for fishing. I'm for teaching kids how to fish.
Right.
It's just finding that balance of creating chaos, you know, if there's 30 kids out there fishing on a seawall, you know.
I don't know, I just, when you told me that the six-pack charters could not,
Well, the
Not
reason that
launch,
is one
but
is
not
for
pick 'em up.
parking.
Yeah.
And the other is dock space available, like on a weekend, if you've got 4 charter boats that are running out of there that don't have a slip to go to, they're gonna park either on the fuel dock, boat ramp, other spaces. Now, I could dedicate slips for them to go to, but those slips are on a first come, first served basis.
right?
So, you know, to do that fairly is, you know, because it's supposed to be used for municipal marina and purposes. That's the goal behind what the marina was kind of deeded to us for. Was that, which I agree, recreational fishing and going out, not everybody has their boat,
Right.
you know? But we have 6 charter boats and then
How
a
does
couple
Public
of
Works get put into that? That's not,
It
that's
was
not,
like that before I got there.
that's what I'm saying. That I look through the restrictions and I don't see Public Works being, meeting any of these guidelines. None.
Well, that's on another parcel.
Yeah, parcels 5,
Yeah.
6, and 7 that don't, their only restriction is that parcel 7, 5 feet, the 5 feet restriction.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I
Maybe
would,
maybe it's me, it's the spirit of what it's written. Okay, 5, 6, and 7 are not restricted. You can do anything you want with 5, 6, and 7, basically is what it's saying.
like, it just needs to be a public purpose.
Okay,
That, I believe the intent of the entire
Mhm.
property, and I think if we were to ask the individuals and then anybody at the state level, they would say it just needs to ensure that it stays a public purpose. There are, the opinion, the legal opinion is restrictions in terms of leasing any part of it seems to be restricted, that, or not recommended that we would lease any portion of the property to a third-party operator. Hence, the opinion why a restaurant would not be allowed unless the city operated and ran the
right.
restaurant and.
I don't see the, yeah, 5, 6, and 7. Just trying to understand.
I think the other question would be, where would Public Works go at this point?
I
Yeah,
get
yeah.
that, but that's something.
They're essential too, obviously.
No,
Yes,
they're very
yeah.
essential, and I don't think they belong there. What's that? They're just gonna, no, I think we need a realtor to find Public Works some property.
Yeah, I could agree. I mean, I can do whatever.
It's
They're great
dedicated.
neighbors. I'm not gonna say.
I know you are. No, I know you are.
No, and
I got other neighbors that, you know.
no, you're the best neighbor ever.
No, and Vice, I mean, Vice Mayor, I mean, your point is well taken, and I think the staff understands that, and that's something that I think the city's been looking for some time. It's,
But there's
challenging.
looking and there's actually hiring someone to find you some property, and we haven't done that. And I know that's not what you're up here about, but you share the property, and you gave me some great insight. They've been there longer than you have.
Mhm.
Right, okay? I'm gonna go back and, in the microfiche and try to figure out, when did this whole agreement, try to understand this agreement, because right now it's not working in my brain. It's just not. It's hard for me to.
The deed goes back to, I think, 1953.
Yeah, there was something else that was on the actual advertisement of the city property. Yeah, here it is. I'm sorry. I don't know. I just don't see how we just need to find property for the Public Works. I've said it, and I think there's so much that can be done with the city marina for more enjoyment, not only for the residents, but the people that come here every year, and bring revenue from the surrounding cities to enjoy the property as well.
Yeah, I'll strongly say that I believe that everybody, 99.99% of people that come there leave happy. I mean, I don't really get complaints. I don't get, anything I don't think Robin gets many complaints. I don't hear about them.
No,
So I think everybody enjoys it.
right. I mean,
So we got that down.
but I want to get
so
it even
it's-
further. A day on the water, there's nothing more
Yeah,
fun than a
yeah.
day on the
Usually
water.
most people come in, happy. Some people come in frustrated. My boat's not working and stuff like that. We got staff that's been on boats. So they got knowledge to get them back up and going. So
Yeah.
that's, real important too, is just to, stove somebody's frustration and be like, hey, look, it's not that hard,
Right, right. So from the city's side, not necessarily from Krabby's, I mean, that's his life there. What is the next step? Are we gonna submit a letter, or that just to the
We can,
state?
so I think if your
It just-
direction is, I think we can submit a letter to
remove all restrictions.
see if can we expand the marina and to include additional uses such as a restaurant? I think
Yeah.
that, I think. if
I think the
that's-
restaurant is kind of one of our main thing,
Yeah, we
because
wanna-
docking and public facility, that all goes with.
We
in
want to
line with what you're
minimize
thinking, but-
restrictions
For future redevelopment of the property.
Yeah.
For marina purposes.
I don't know, it just hurts my heart as I come down 150th and I just see it just with that fence.
Some of that's not mine.
I'm not you know me better than that. I'm not pointing, it just,
The white vinyl fence was put in, I don't know, maybe 5 years
it
ago
wasn't,
now. It was requested by the board.
Yeah.
So
and it was to hide the boats.
it was to hide,
Yeah.
or make it look better. And it looks
I
great
think
when
the-
you're
yeah,
coming in. It does look
It
good.
was a combination of
Combination.
hide, safety,
Yeah.
Yes.
beautification. The board at the
Mhm.
time saw it as beautification.
Yeah.
I drive past it every day because I live next door. I am your neighbor and I'm a nice neighbor.
I know you are.
But part of it was, it shielded seeing all of the trailers. And now, I shared this, I don't remember with who, but if you go over into the building, I was actually talking about you too, when I shared this, because if you could see this, and we were talking about if we could get a drone up there, if you go over into the building that is next door to where I live, and you go up on the 5th floor and you look over the marina, if you had looked over the marina 6 years ago, before the fence went up, and you looked over the marina now, it's amazing. I mean, it is so organized. It is so orderly. It is so, you can't even tell it from, I mean, I can tell it because I walk by there and over there and all of that, but Krabby has done a fantastic job with the marina. And I mean, when you look, everything has a place. It's very, very neat. It's very orderly. I think you probably have more things there now than what you could have before.
Yeah, when the development that was happening at the Holden property, when they first started to begin the development before COVID, they redid the driveway coming in. They had paid for all that. So they asked, how do you want, the drive to come in to look, because they had to extend the turn lane.
Yeah.
So that was part of, city money didn't go towards that. The developer had to pay to redo that out front. So we redid the driveway to make it, a little more open, and then have a little more parking. We designed it to have more parking too, because it extended a little further towards the road.
Yeah. I mean, and good job. I mean, when you're there every day, you kind of notice the changes. And when you think that what's there now isn't nice, it really is. And there's more parking, there's better use of the space. And I attribute all that to Krabby.
Thank you. And there's always room for improvement,
Right.
and, always look at something, from the outside, can't always look at it as I'm there every day. Walk around, see, oh, maybe I can use this space a little differently, or, I could put two jet ski trailers here instead of one boat trailer goes in a corner, just little things like that.
Well, one of the ideas that we discussed during our meeting was that maybe put a 2 or 3 level parking deck right there behind where the pump station is or whatever that is, where you don't even really see it. So you'd have your parking and, it wouldn't block
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
You wouldn't see anything.
I'm just not sure, how much that would,
Yeah, that was, we threw out a
Just
lot of
idea-
ideas.
just
That was just
ideas,
one
yeah,
of them. It
yeah.
was,
Yeah,
but
somehow it could be built into the public works structure there to hide public works and have a parking above it.
right, and have Public Works in
I
the
mean,
the base level. I thought that was a
There's
great
all kinds of
idea.
discussions to be had
But
about
that's-
it. It's just gonna, everything boils down to, money, and is the juice worth the squeeze, There are other places that could use parking garages in the city. It's not up to me to decide, but
Yeah.
it might be.
All right, I'll open it for other.
Comments?
I'm with Vice Mayor Kerr. I think you brought up a lot of good points.
It would be definitely great to write a letter to release restrictions. I was there Thursday night for the captain's party at the Grunt Hunt, and what a great time, except for the wind tunnel going through there. I didn't dress for the occasion, but like even the store is clean. The beer is cold, the restrooms are clean, it's a great attraction for our community. I don't think a lot of people know about it except for the boaters, but like during our Grunt Hunt, and things like that, we expose what you have helped to create. So I appreciate what you're doing. And so I'm all for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Oh, yes, I forgot. So Krabby, I was at Thursday's captain's meeting and it was very cold, so I didn't appreciate that.
My bad.
However, I came back on Saturday and the weather was fantastic. I think there were more people there Saturday for the Grunt Hunt I know there were more people there than I've seen in a long time.
There was a bunch.
It was so much fun and there were so many, people who were there that their kids were having a great time. They had gone fishing all day. It was just a really spectacular event. And I mean, I can't tell you how many people came up and they were just,
That's what it's all
it
about.
was,
for
it was,
me.
it was a great event. You did a fantastic job.
Mhm.
So good job.
Thank you.
And thank you for letting me come and work.
No problem. You
Love
did
it.
good. You did good. You didn't buckle. I was impressed.
I did not, and I stayed until the end.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Can't
It
we
was
have the
a lot
Grunt
of fun.
Hunt more than once a year?
What's that?
Can't we do the Grunt Hunt more than
Right?
once a year?
Oh, boy.
It's a lot of work, but. All right, thank you, Krabby.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Public Works Satellite Building Change Order.
And Mayor and Commissioners, Ms. Wepfer walks up. We presented this at the last meeting. The design, the engineering work for our proposed Public Works building. And we do have to request a change order.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. What I bring before you today is a error on my part and also on the engineering firm. There was a miscommunication. So the architectural services and the structural engineering services were not included in on the proposal that you approved at the previous meeting for $62,050. So this change order is $88,610, in which we do have budgeted funds available for. And that would bring the total engineering cost to $150,660. And I am here for any questions you may have.
Do we have any public comment? Commission comments?
Oh, I believe it's a great thing for the city, so I'm all for it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm not for it.
Mistakes happen, and if it's still budgeted, I'm for it.
Thank you.
I'm still a no.
I know the importance of needing a public works building, and I also know that we have constantly been looking, we've been looking, I know, for longer than 2 years. So to find a piece of property, and if the opportunity presented itself and we were able to purchase a piece of property, I don't think anybody sitting up here would be against it. But currently, our public works has been displaced and they don't have a building, and they haven't had a building for a very long time. So I support the change order. Next,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
And we will bring back the item at the next regular commission meeting on April 2nd.
next on the agenda is the Boca Ciega Street End Project Update, 3/26/25.
I believe we spoke about this at the last meeting, and there are a couple changes due to Hurricane Helene. We have eliminated the driveway at 134th and Boca Ciega Ave, and eliminated the parking spaces at 134th and Boca Ciega Drive. So I believe you should see in the updated plans, which are attached in your packet, both of those have been Xed out. I do have the bid ready to place out to the public. I am just waiting for a couple items, and my plan is to release that on April 4th. I then will have a pre-bid meeting, which I will, oh, I'm sorry. No, that is correct. Yes, April 4th. I'll have a pre-bid meeting a couple weeks later. I don't have that date set yet. And then the bid opening. So the plan will be, because this project's estimated to be less than 100,000, my plan is to have it open to the public for about 3 weeks. That'll give us ample time to get enough bids, to have a pre-bid meeting, to visit every site, and to answer any questions that the contractors may have.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners, comments?
No comment.
Comments?
Thanks for making those changes with the driveways and the parking spaces. Send it out. We're ready to go.
You got it.
No comment.
I agree. Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is automated side load garbage truck lease agreement.
What I bring before you today is a renewal of the automated side loader that we leased from RDK that was approved back in November of 2023. We've had that truck in service. We've, to my knowledge, had just a few minor issues when we changed over the program, but all has been adapted. After the hurricane, there's been a couple residents that have been upset because they've had multiple trash cans and forgot the way that we operated prior to the storm, but we're getting back to the way that we should. So the price is $8,500 per month. We do have it budgeted in this budget. If we were to purchase an automated side loader, that cost would be around $400,000.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners, comments?
Does the lease with this company include maintenance and repairs on it, or
It
is that
sure
on
does.
us? Oh, it does? Okay.
Yes, and when they come to repair the truck, they send someone with another truck so that we are not down a truck. And then they also deliver the truck back to us after it's been repaired. We have had a amazing relationship with RDK.
I would say continue then.
What's your predicted lifespan of a truck like that?
Typically 6 to 7 years, typically.
And the annual maintenance service cost? Have any idea?
It depends on the age of the vehicle. Once they're a year or two old, your typical cost is for maintenance, not including tires, probably around $5,000. Once the truck gets older, blades break, cylinders need to be repaired, that's when costs start getting really expensive. So we have a couple trucks that are 2020s that have blades that are broken. That costs just on its own for a blade is around $8,500. So anything mechanical happens to this truck, we do not pay for any of it.
And how about the actual, I don't know what you call it, the area where the trash goes in, what's that called?
The hopper?
The hopper.
Mm-hmm.
how long do they last before you have to have them relined or replaced or whatever?
Right around that 5 to 7 year mark, depending on commercial, obviously, with the acid from the restaurants eats away at that hopper, and they don't make metal the way they used to. So we're usually 5 to 7 years, and that can be anywhere from 5,000, we haven't had to do that in quite some time, to 10 to 12,000, depending on the truck.
So what happens at the end of the 4-year lease? Is it a 4-year lease?
This is a 13-month
13
lease.
13
We
months.
get a new truck. We get a new truck every 13 months. And we are piggybacking this off of the,
Existing Polk County.
thank you,
agreement.
Polk County contract.
I was coming off the 4-year because you mentioned new truck costing 400 or so.
Correct. And that goes up every year by, it's been ridiculous since COVID. I think after COVID, they started going up 13 to 25% each year. And the build out timeframe of a new truck is 12 to 16 months. The last truck, so we had a 2023 Kenworth that we purchased, and we purchased that, and I think I sent the PO in 2020. That truck was built so poorly that it was in and out of the shop that we actually traded that truck in so that we didn't have to deal with the maintenance once that warranty was up on it. So new garbage trucks are just not made very well anymore either.
Megan, was that a side loader?
No, that was a rear load. This is the only side load
Right.
truck we've ever had.
I was going to add to Vice Mayor and Mayor and Commission, I think one of the bigger issues with side loaders is not, well, excuse me, not a big issue, but an advantage or a benefit is it just has one driver. You go from a staffing of 2 or 3 down to 1, typically. That's how a side loader works, the operation. If it's down for maintenance or any repair, right now, we don't have another one. That's the downside, or the value of leasing is we always have one. As Ms. Wepfer stated, the company will bring another one. You typically don't see, in other words, we'd pretty much have to have 2 of them. And especially after year 1, or maybe toward the end of year 1, we would realistically have to have a second one just to cover the regular maintenance, but then anything else that would happen with the side loader. So there's benefits and a little bit of a drawbacks to leasing.
And the technology gets transferred to the new vehicle at the end of the lease, assuming we were to sign a new lease.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the mechanical side of the side loaders obviously have a lot more maintenance needed than a rear load. They have the arm, that's a lot more hydraulics.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Comments?
Sounds good. I'm for it.
So I agree. How much did you say a new truck would cost approximately?
Approximately 400,000. I have not priced one out since this agreement.
I mean, the numbers are, if that truck cost us $663,000 over the course of 6.5 years. So I would think that if you went back over the year that you've had the truck and you looked at how many times we had an issue that they had to bring another truck and trade it out, and then you looked at the maintenance, if you could guesstimate the maintenance of that truck over the course of 6.5 years, and you coupled that with not having a vehicle because you wouldn't have it, because we're not going to purchase 2, it makes sense to lease as opposed to purchasing.
I also forgot to mention our mechanic is retiring at the end of this year. And our mechanic, we will never find
Right.
another Leroy. He can work on anything from a fire truck to a weed eater. So replacing or finding someone to fill his shoes is going to be incredibly tough.
Didn't you tell him that before he could retire, he had to find and hire and train
We are working
his
on that.
replacement?
Yes.
That's what you're
We are-
supposed to do.
Yes, we are working on that, but finding someone to fill those shoes is going to be incredibly tough.
I would support the lease as well. Next on the agenda is Tom and Kitty Stewart Park Hurricane Update.
Hello again. So what I bring before you is the update for Tom and Kitty Stewart Park. So the city has approved a PO, and I don't have that. Do you
In a
want
minute.
public comment
You,
beforehand?
you present, and then we'll do
Yeah,
public
the
comment.
city stuff.
So we approved a purchase order for the engineering for the seawall. I'm not sure what I've brought up in the past, so I'll just start from fresh. So we have a seawall over at Archibald Park that sustained the storm. The only thing that did not was the cap, the wall cap. So we found the design of that seawall. We took it to the marine contractor, Rube Clarkson, gave him that design plan, and because that design is over 2 feet tall, it has to go through a wave run-up analysis. We are in the process of that wave run-up analysis, and Rube told me that I should have it within the next couple weeks. Once we receive that, then the plan is to put the original plan for the park back out to bid. So really, we're just waiting on the engineering. Once we receive that, then the bid process starts. That bid process, as we know, especially for the large size of this project, will probably take from bid to contract issued around 4 months. So we're at April, September-ish is my hope that we may have a contract, but don't hold me to that because it all depends on engineering services.
Do we have any public comment?
Good evening. I'm Marcus Winters, one of the owners of Caddies. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like to hand you an engineer letter and a plan.
You.
So just to talk, Tom and Kitty Stewart Park, when I purchased, when we purchased the property, it came with a development agreement. We followed that development agreement to the letter of the law, and we designed a building that would fit and would work within the development agreement. As we were doing that, we came across some hurdles. A couple of small ones were where the crosswalk was. So we had to redesign the building because of where the crosswalk was according to what DOT required for the entrance and the access to Kitty Stewart Park. So by doing that, we were reduced to an exit only lane underneath our restaurant. So right now, and what this letter is kind of saying is, we have an issue down there. I'm getting a lot of complaints. Online, people are complaining about how dangerous it is for handicap access, for letting people come under the building. Once we let them come in, it's pretty tight to get in for people then pulling back out. Actually, my engineer, when he came today, he had to reverse back out onto Gulf Boulevard. We all know how busy Gulf Boulevard is. And it's an issue, it's dangerous. I had the engineer walk around Kitty Stewart Park. I have emailed and had a conversation with the city manager a couple of times about it, and it was always, no, it's not possible and it's a safety issue. I had the engineer come out today and have a look at the property. The safety issue, first of all, it wasn't safe for cars to drive on, but trucks and vehicles are entering off the beach and onto the beach through it. You know, I went through a considerable expense to build the park. My engineer has drawn up, and I think we had given it to the IT gentleman there, had drawn up a plan by measuring it out that by using the fence, we could still have an entrance and a driveway just to enter under in the building. It would be clearly marked. There would be a sign there for construction. There's a dumpster there. There's plenty of space for the dumpster to be moved. anything that I think is a kind of a safety concern can be sectioned off in the fence. And as we're looking at the time, I'm in the middle of spring break right now. I've been closed for 3.5 months. I have a lot of people trying to get into my building. And I'm just asking, maybe we can just look at it. Through talking to Sean, Sean is the guy who designed the park in the first place because I had to build it when I redid the whole thing, so he's very familiar with it. There seems to be plenty of space to be able to do all of this. So I'm just asking for the commission to have a conversation about it and see if there's something you guys can help us out with, because it's a serious issue at the minute and somebody's going to get hurt.
Thank you. Do we have any further public comment?
Mayor and Commissioner, pardon me, allergies are going through the roof here. Some of you may know, I built that development for Sun Pubs. There was a considerable amount of time spent. Originally, what you see there today isn't what was in the drawings. It wasn't what was initially submitted. It was FDOT. FDOT had Sean Cashin and traffic analysis and all these studies done to determine the best way to ingress and egress out from that property. You know, there's a crosswalk there, there's a median there. It's very, very challenging. By eliminating the ingress through Kitty Stewart Park, when Sean Cashin was there, I believe he stated it in his letter, there were 4 or 5 vehicles that pulled in there. All 4 or 5 of them had to back out on the Gulf Boulevard. You talk about liability. I appreciate Mr. Gomez sending me an email saying it's a liability risk. There's no liability in sectioning off the south half of that parking lot. It's more than half. And allowing the one vehicle to enter in just to the south side of the building. Then you drive through, valet's there, and the valet takes the cars, they drive it across the street, they park it in the parking lots that are across the street. I appreciate the city making accommodations since there's so limited parking that's available. I appreciate them allowing some temporary parking on the side street there. But the danger isn't someone walking through there. I've been a builder for 44 years. You put that construction fence up, it's going to separate. It's going to separate the construction side from the pedestrian side. We inspected the pavers today. They're all fine underneath there. There's not one issue with any of them. You can read it in Sean Cashin's letter that he prepared for you today. It's imperative that this is done right away, because you talk about liability. When someone's backing up there and the lawyers get involved and they say, we've came here and pleaded with you to please create a safe environment for us here. You know, but back up, someone's going to get rear-ended. It's huge liability. You want to take that risk on yourself? I'm not worried about people walking along the side because it's all fenced off. It's all fenced off. It's all swept nice and clean. It's all maintained. Spieler and all the crews that are out there working on the groins, they got plenty of access on the south side of that fence. It doesn't go all the way to the back. It doesn't hinder any work that has to be done on the seawall, because that's all to the east side, not to the west side. So I think the sooner we get it done, the better. It's time to stop kicking this can. We've been here for 3 months trying to do the same thing. It's very frustrating. It's frustrating because it's a very dangerous situation. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further comment? Commissioners, comments? Commissioners, comments?
I'll be more than happy to. Is there an easement right now on Tom Stewart Park? Is there any existing easement on this property?
What, you mean for, I mean, there's a,
Is there a private easement between Caddy's and the city?
the development agreement allowed for 5 feet, a 5 feet easement, so the city could have the parking spaces on the north side of the lot. So just to expand the ability to have, I think there are 4 parking spaces here, and then 1 to 2 up against the seawall, or close to the seawall. So that's what was negotiated, or I think approved with the development agreement of the site. Isn't that, or Tom can correct, but
That's correct. They give an easement to the city for 5 feet to allow that additional parking to be on the north side of the property. So,
But wouldn't the spirit of the agreement have been to give them the access to drive through? That's how they ended up with a drive-through. So when the development got built, I don't know, but when that got built, and whatever happened that the DOT entrance changed, and it was a drive-through that you pull in through Tom Stewart Kitty Park, and you go under Caddy's, and then you pull out the other side. That was the spirit of the agreement when that was all approved and done.
that's correct.
that's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
So there's a development agreement.
it was the spirit of the agreement when everything got approved in the end. Whatever changes made and how they had to change the layout of the building or where it was,
So in the image up on the screen, the location, and Megan, you could, I believe the 5 feet is where the fence is on this north side here of Tom and Kitty Stewart Park. And again, here are the spaces that, due to the additional or the 5 feet easement, allowed for these spaces to exist.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. Caddy gave 5 feet easement to the city
Yes, or,
to be able to park those cars because you need 19 feet of depth.
correct,
And you probably had 14 feet or something like that.
something.
So that's something totally different. But as far as access, they're gonna need at least 12 feet of access from Gulf Boulevard, plus the turn to go underneath the building. So, and I'm just thinking that based on what I'm hearing, the development agreement facilitated an access from Gulf Boulevard through
Through the
Park.
park into Caddy's,
into
correct.
Caddy.
You're correct, Commissioner.
And that development agreement is good forever?
No, it's already expired.
Expired.
So they're going to have to get another easement or?
No, the easement runs with the land. So that's a non-issue.
But was there an easement recorded for access?
I believe so. It was either a conveyance or an easement, and it would have been
One or the
recorded.
other.
Because that makes a big difference.
But it doesn't,
So, but I guess what's your question, Commissioner?
My
Or
question
comment.
is legal ability to access the property, the park, for personal use.
the
mean, I can-
conveyance was to the city, not vice versa. So,
Yes, they would have, yeah, well, the city would have given Caddy an easement.
no, it was the other way around.
Private property gave the city or conveyed to the city 5 feet.
No, that I understand. I'm talking about access now.
The ability to drive through there?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't believe that there was a cross easement access agreement
No.
that was drafted.
Okay, and for this purpose, we either should, I mean, if we are wanting to acknowledge the access, there might be a temporary easement right now to access the property for their use. And at some point down the road, it would have to become a real recorded easement.
It doesn't need to be an easement. They don't have a legal right currently because that development agreement has expired. But it was the intent of the city commission to allow them to have that circular access through Kitty Stewart Park underneath their restaurant. And so that's the spirit of the agreement, and I think that still exists, even though the development agreement has expired. I think what the issue today is, should you allow a portion of that construction area to be opened up so that they have some access to, for their restaurant? That's really what they're asking
Temporary,
today.
temporary.
On it,
Until it's repaired.
and until the construction work is done.
And I have no problem with that, but long-term, I guess they're gonna have to access through the park to get to the building.
Like they always have.
They always have that way, yeah.
Is that, I guess?
But I think, Commissioner, there's no formal document or written, I guess, documentation or evidence that this is their access, I think is
Yes,
kind of
that's
where
what
you're
I'm-
coming
yes.
from. And
Mhm.
you're stating there should probably be something in
Yes.
writing.
Yes, if the agreement of this board is to grant access, then there has to be a recorded easement down the road.
Whatever that.
It could violate the deed that conveyed the property to the city, and I think that that was probably the reason why it wasn't done back in the beginning when the development agreement was. We can't make any part of that park commercialized or being part of their private business. And so I would be afraid that there would be a reverter argument, that the property would revert back to the grantors if we did something like that. They're not asking for that tonight. All they're asking for is move the fence over so that they can drive around.
I'm okay with tonight.
Yeah.
It just long-term is questionable in my mind.
Yeah, you don't need to provide them anything long-term. Yeah.
Commissioner?
For what, excuse me, for what is temporarily going on as far as temporary access. And if you listen to what everyone has talked about, it's common sense, basically. You can't have cars backing out on the Gulf Boulevard all the time, and you have to be ADA compliant in some way. And we're only talking about a short term here. And don't forget, we work for the residents of Madeira Beach, and this is part of it, I don't have a problem with moving the fence so that way they can enjoy their business.
Just so everyone is clear, the reason we weren't allowed is because we do, well, one, and this has not been communicated to the property owner or the business owner, that they could limit their access to the current entrance to handicapped only. They could very easily place signs, restaurant parking to the two parking lots that are across the street. We can allow parking additionally on 141st and on Palm Street for restaurant parking. That is an option. I have not seen, and it has not been communicated, I don't believe to myself or to Megan, of what was stated this evening of cars backing into Gulf Boulevard. But that does, I'm sure that happens. I haven't observed it, but I'm sure it happens because I've observed it happen when the park, in the 3 years that I've been here, when the park and the restaurant are open, there will be, particularly on busy days, cars will pull into the Tom and Kitty Stewart parking lot, realize that they're not moving for whatever reason, and then they'll back out onto Gulf Boulevard. So that has been happening periodically, that when it gets very busy, and that's dangerous. I've been driving when I've observed it. When I've walked by there, I've observed that. There are some methods that they can take. The reason we fenced it is because it's unsafe for people to walk. If we move the fence over, we're incurring the liability should something happen with a vehicle, or if a person walks through there, trips and falls, slips, whatever. We don't have a way of preventing people from walking through there. Will the business take on that responsibility? I don't know, but there's no way for us to prevent pedestrians. Even if we put signage, pedestrians with an arrow to go to the right or to the left, if that area is open, people will walk through there. This is a busy access to the sand and to the restaurant.
Well, I mean, in spirit of the agreement, 5 feet, move the fence. It's a temporary thing. I don't see a problem with that. I mean, I do see a problem with if I had a child in a wheelchair and I'm trying to cross over Gulf Boulevard with my child.
Well, there's a signalized crosswalk, but
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
disabled parking can be made available where they
I
currently
understand, I
underneath the
understand,
restaurant.
yeah, I understand that, but there's been so many traffic accidents where people have said, I stopped, but that car didn't, and I would hate to have that on my conscience, honestly. I just don't see a reason why we can't do the 5 feet fence thing.
That's the direction we will do but again, we are incurring some liability, just so you're aware, if there's a trip and fall.
Comments?
Just to be clear, the city has no intention of taking back, long-term, taking back that driveway into Kitty Stewart Park for them, for
Not have
customers.
access?
So not
No.
gonna, that's not the intention.
Nope.
That's gonna
It's
last.
just during the construction.
And so you answered my question, I guess, just for the driveway portion. The city of Madeira Beach covers liability for that. Is that right? I mean, if somebody walks now in that space where we've opened up
That's not
for-
our property.
the,
The current opening is
Yeah.
not city property. Yeah, when we open it, yes, I mean,
oh,
yes, but it's not normally a construction site, and,
so, sorry, I guess I'm confused. Who's now? Who is it now? I mean, you said.
well, it's fenced in,
Right,
so nobody can walk through there.
I got that,
Yep.
but who? I'm trying to understand. Pretend the fences weren't there. Like we're suggesting that you take down half of it. Then whose responsibility is
Well,
for that?
when it is open and normally open, the city's responsible.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
if somebody trips and falls, we're liable.
I mean, is Caddy's willing to accept that liability? Because otherwise I
Not
don't.
their
I don't,
property.
I understand, but I mean, I don't see that we have a choice. If we're making it hazardous to go through there for them, and we feel as a city that it's not safe, then I think we make that decision.
Yes.
So to answer your question is that, yes, we can draft an agreement, an indemnification agreement, and so long as Mr. Winter's company or himself personally will take on that responsibility for injuries that have occurred on the inside of the fence if it's moved, if he's willing to do that, I mean, obviously, I can prepare a document that would address that. So if that's the direction you wanted to go. Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Winters? Okay. I obviously did not prepare for this. So I didn't know that this was going to be the question, but I mean, I obviously can prepare an agreement. It wouldn't take that long to do.
Just, Bill, if you wouldn't mind, just come up so you can, or use a microphone or some in the back. Thank you, if that's okay with. Thank you.
Just for clarification, you see the yellow line right going through the middle? That's where we're talking about moving the fence. Moving the fence from where it is over to there. All that pavement and all that's been inspected by the engineer. It's totally safe. You have a gate on the left side of that line, and that way you can open it up for the trucks and the tractors and all the equipment that you need to get out onto the beach. That'll still remain where no residents can walk through that property. But the cars can drive through, and that fence would be right straight down that line and then just make a little hook underneath the building.
Just keep in mind that the public will be able to walk through here as well.
Yeah, and they can. There's a sidewalk right there to the
Yeah,
right.
no, but they'll walk through here. Unless,
It won't be open all the way through
Why
there.
would they walk through there when
won't
there's a
be open.
crosswalk?
It's gonna
because it's
go-
open and people will,
Fine.
yeah.
Well, it's safe. I mean, they can walk there. I can walk on any public sidewalk or street and slip and fall and sue you. I mean, unfortunately.
But those are not
it's a-
construction sites.
Well, that isn't either, because your construction works on the other side.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner, do you have any comments?
No, I think we worked it all out. I didn't have to make a comment.
Well, I just want to say that I had a conversation with Robin about it because I went and had lunch there one day with my mother and my sister. And I had to park across the street and walk. And I stood out there before we had lunch and then after lunch when we came back out. And it is dangerous because what happens, in my opinion, what people are doing is they're coming and they're thinking they're going to go to Caddy's, but when they get there, they can't pull in. And I watched it, and it's not safe. And yes, of course, there's lots of options of telling people to park across the street, but the simpler answer is just to let them pull in and do a drive-through. Drop your people off, valet takes it over, or they drive through and they drop their people off and they drive it over. But to not have any access to the restaurant, to me, doesn't make sense when we're talking about September before you go out to bid, Megan? Before you start construction. Okay, that's a long time to try to not come up with a solution. And I didn't get, nor do I get, just the hard no, we can't find a compromise. When Mr. Winters purchased the property, or his company purchased the property, the development agreement was already done. He purchased a property that had long been approved, and we've punished him at almost every turn we possibly could. The community has been against him and different things like that. And he not has tried to be, but he's a great partner to the city and to the community in all he does. So I have a hard time understanding why we wouldn't sit with him and try to come up with a compromise. So I'd like for us to open it up and let his patrons use that drive-through to be able to safely turn into the restaurant and have their car parked or park across the street, however.
My only question is to Megan, and that is, once you begin construction on the seawall, is that going to impede the construction?
I'm not sure if anyone has been to the park since it's been hit by Helene, but losing the seawall cost us to lose about 15 feet-ish, plus or minus, of our property. So once we build back the seawall, we're gonna have to bring in fill, and we're gonna have to reestablish our property. Will we have to, and I think Marcus has brought this up, to, when we start construction, to close that back off if that's what we need to do, and he is okay with that. I can't say yes or no at this moment, but if you're looking at the picture that Robin has up on the screen, all of the pavers basically from the south of the green dumpster, that's all gone. So we can't really further much utilize, like move the dumpster over too much further, but that doesn't impede the place that they're talking about. But to talk about what's gonna happen during construction, and the seawall will go in first. Once the seawall goes in, then we'll build back the parking lot. But we also don't know the utilities. We don't know the water line, the sewer line, how that was affected. So we haven't even begun to start to look at that, and that is on my to-do list, to see if we can get a plumber in there to camera those lines to see if they have to be replaced, because they may. If I had to guess, they're probably completely impacted by sand.
Yeah, so based on all that, I mean, it'd be my opinion, if, as long as we get the right agreement written up, and part of that is that this can be rescinded at any time because we need to be able to have the construction, or we need to dig it up to inspect the utilities underground, or for whatever reason that you have. But if the ownership of Caddy's is willing to accept the liability in writing, I mean, the only thing I'm seeing is really, it's more architectural stuff from what the view is here. No, I have not been there personally. It's all fenced off anyway, so I haven't tried to inspect it. But that would be, I mean, that would be my gut reaction. If we can help, let's help. But if it's, you have to have it's got to be smart. That's all.
I would agree.
Mayor, I just want to reiterate, I think the liability is the only concern of mine. And if Caddy's is willing to assume the liability, and that once we do start construction, we may have to close it off again, then I think I'd be okay with it.
As I stated, Mayor and Commission, not that signage helps, but I know that they haven't put it, there has been no signage indicating parking across the street unless it was added recently. That would also help, but if they'd be willing to add signage for that, not sure if that's for whatever it's worth.
I think I have direction to prepare the indemnification agreement, work directly with Mr. Winters to get that accomplished. And then I assume that once Mr. Winters signed it and the city manager signs it, we're going to be good to go. We don't need to bring it back here for anything else?
I don't
No.
think so.
Okay. All right, I'm
And-
seeing a lot of heads
And it
nodding.
includes,
That's okay.
it includes that we can fence it off again when we need to.
Oh, it's going to be, going to be completely revocable,
Okay.
so that any time that we need to, put the fence back up, we would have the right to put the fence back up. So,
I just have one more comment I'd like to make. So you talk about signage. One thing that we're gonna do is out front, we're gonna have Caddy's entrance signage on to the right of the yellow line, and construction entrance sign to the left of that. So construction will go to the left. Patrons go to the right of that sign. And then if you'd like some signage, I'm sure we'd be more than happy to put some signage, across the street.
Is that an exit only from underneath?
It always was.
It could,
From the time it opened, that one was always exit only.
is,
And the other one could be entrance or exit.
or
Because there was 6 parking spots there before. Now the
Yeah.
city has 14 of them. That was part of the.
yeah, no, I get all that. But I'm just, instead of people actually pulling in and having to back out on
Yeah,
golf.
you can see the you can see the do not enter sign right
Oh,
there.
did it? I couldn't
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah,
Here,
you can
sorry.
spin it to the right.
There's a
little
do
bit.
not enter, and there was another one. There was another do not enter right here as well.
Oh, okay.
So, right, it was just an exit.
I'm just saying, it's
only.
just.
If you got a do not
try to-
enter sign there and you can't get in the other side,
They don't
you
have
might
to
as well
do it.
shut the place down.
Well, again, that's what the parking is across the street, and that's kind
It
of.
may be helpful to direct some
That's
people.
great, but those few
Yeah.
spots don't get it done.
All right. Good. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Court of Honor update, 3/26/25.
Hello again. Sorry to bombard you all tonight. What you have in your packet, and I don't believe you have seen these plans before, but this is the design that we have. I believe Robin and I gave an update at the last meeting. We did a couple modifications due to one, just not believing that they needed to be there, or two, the cost was just really, really high. So you'll see the first page is the current location. I believe there's been questions in the past about the elevation of that area. That is also listed there. And then on the second page, you have the actual overhead design. So you'll see that there is the gazebo that is currently in that place will be relocated if possible. We are going to look to relocate that because it is a metal structure and it does get a lot of use, so we would like to move it in the park if possible. And then there's some concrete work to remove sidewalks that are currently there and then construct the star as you will. We are open to any changes you may have, but these, Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe these plans are nearly completed. We were just looking
Yes.
for your direction on how you would like to proceed, if you would like to make any changes, or if we are ready to place them out to bid. And we're here if you have any questions.
Public comment? My husband is
Oh,
not. Commission, questions?
I'm ready. I'm fine with going out to bid.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sure I am, but I just, there's no option to actually elevate this a little bit. If this is, your last comment previously was that it's underwater quite often.
If you look at the park, and I could send the original plans of the park. So the way that the park was designed, there are areas that are retention ponds. This area is not. This area rarely goes underwater unless we have a super high tide and it's coming over the seawall. So yes, areas of the park are often underwater, or if we have a heavy rain event, those retention ponds do have water.
But
So
this
the
is-
area
this is- Okay, but you clarified that this is not one of them. I'm not.
No, sir, this is not
Okay.
one of them.
This is the
Okay.
low point here.
Right.
Typically, this will fill up with water, and over here as well, you can,
Right.
where it's a little bit greener in these images,
Mhm.
on a, as Megan stated, on a very high, super high tide or storm, the whole park is covered with water.
Right. So unless it's over the seawall, any water is gonna drain from that area regardless.
Yes.
Either left or right.
And this is concrete constructed, so knock on wood, all of the park has concrete sidewalks. We haven't had issues. That was one of the reasons we had originally talked about putting pavers in there, but we decided that was not a good idea.
Is the finish on this gonna be something that can be power washed?
Yes, so the exterior portion outside of the circle is concrete. Then you have the circle that is more of, it's all kind of a decorative concrete, if you will. The star itself is going to be a stained concrete. And then the outer portion between the star and the circle will be an epoxy so that the star pops. I'm not sure if that's included in. Yes, if you go to look at the bottom portion of those plans, you'll see, with the exception of the pavers on the outside of the ring, what this will look like on a smaller scale. I believe they just finished something like this at, Robin, do you know the name of the park in Clearwater, I believe?
Well, the most, Crest Lake Park was
Crest
the
Lake,
most
yes.
recent in
Yes.
the last 3 or 4 years, or maybe 5 years.
So it's very similar to the design that we were going for because it is low maintenance. When
Well,
you,
I'm just thinking that, over time, what is how do we keep it clean and
Of course.
vibrant? And, pressure washing's best, but also pressure washing takes the color off of things. So I just want that to be in consideration. That's the
absolutely.
only point. Great.
Comments?
Megan, what is the width of the sidewalk at Cambria right on 150th?
I do not know the answer to that question.
I think it's probably either 8 or 10 feet.
On 150th?
Yes.
The FDOT sidewalk
No, the sidewalk that was built with Cambria.
on 150th?
Yes.
That is FDOT sidewalk. I would have to get the
It's-
measurements.
I think it's either 8 or 10 feet, the
Yes.
sidewalk. It's at least
So-
8.
So what I like to suggest, and I know you have to go to DOT and get a permit for that, but I would love to see that sidewalk width to be the same width as the sidewalk further to the west, so that it would be more like what's the word? Just basically continuous.
Are you stating so the only proposed sidewalk changes in here, if you look at the second page, it shows that
Yes,
it's basically the
I see,
U
yeah, I see.
that is
I-
changed out in the
I see the
sidewalk.
plan, but I'm talking about the sidewalk.
This area here.
Exactly, yes. All,
So parallel to 150th, again, it's not our sidewalk. DOT would have to either allow us to do it, or we can ask DOT to do it. I believe I have their answer, but, but we can always ask and make
well,
that request.
yes, you can build a sidewalk that is continuous with the 8-foot, just submit to DOT, hold permit with DOT. It makes sense because we already have a sidewalk that's 8-foot wide on the other side. Now we bottleneck it.
Well, it ends, you have to remember, Commissioner, it does end currently to the west of Patriot Park, because this area is still undeveloped.
Understood, but eventually it'll be 8-foot sidewalk, and it really needs to be continuous. And I'm just thinking that the 8-foot sidewalk needs to go all the way to the bridge and possibly underneath the bridge when that development comes through.
Would that be with this project, or that would be a separate
No, with
project to
this project,
consider?
we're improving our site, and we should build a sidewalk that is based, that's 8 foot.
We will ask DOT, there's no guarantee, but we can ask if that'll increase the cost
Significantly.
significantly, but we can see what that costs and bring that back.
Understood. If this was a private property, I'm sure we would ask them to increase the width.
So how long would it take to find out from DOT if they would allow us to do that or not? What would be, do you have any idea, Megan?
Probably I can send an email tomorrow and call tomorrow, but
I would say
a couple of
minimum,
weeks.
I'm gonna say a month, minimum to find out.
So then to not, because the Court of Honor has been going on for so long and we want to get it out to bid.
Several years.
Right.
Mhm.
So if they would you be okay, Commissioner, if Megan or Robin, whomever is the person that would do it, would inquire to DOT about expanding the sidewalk, but she goes ahead and puts this out to bid and the sidewalk would be an add-on? Because part of why I'm saying that is maybe DOT would pay for it, probably not, but we might not have enough money to do it and would have to do it in 2 phases. So we could get it, ask them, we're beautifying this, we're doing it. Would you give us approval to increase the sidewalk? She can go ahead and get the pricing for the Court of Honor. We can add on the sidewalk and then see how to pay for that, because we
am
didn't
okay.
budget for it.
I am okay with maybe just saying widening the sidewalk to be phase 2, and phase 2
Okay.
could be in 6 months.
Yep.
By then, probably the Court of Honor has been constructed, and DOT will not ask a lot of questions related to drainage, which they would.
And just so we're clear, the sidewalk you're referring from the Patriot Park property line all the way down to
No.
the bridge?
Well,
No?
no, for us, would be just in front of our property.
Well, our property begins here
Correct.
and goes all the way down to the bridge.
Yes.
I know we don't have the money to do that,
We do
so.
not.
So then it would only be partial, or?
Yeah,
We would also
partial
have
is-
to mention that there are utilities, and if you see where the tree lines are, that
There's a bunch.
this is a,
Be problematic.
yes, this is not as simple as just widening the sidewalk. There are force mains, as you can see, there's a manhole cover right there. There's FDOT storm drainage that does run under there. There's Duke Energy Electrical.
Understood.
treatment
I'm
water.
okay with phase 2. Phase 2, sometime down the road to widen that sidewalk.
We can certainly start the process.
Okay. Next on the agenda is Archibald Park bathroom building possible murals.
Last item. I
Last
promise.
item.
Well, I don't believe that we need to talk about the murals because we actually, I'm not sure if anyone saw, but we did place a vote out on Facebook. We received a significant input from the public, I believe over 2,500 votes, Robin.
I think that's so awesome.
And
More
actually,
people voted on
she's-
this than vote in our elections.
She's actually
We had 2,463
so close.
had answered as of 2:45 earlier today, 2:45 in the afternoon. And option 3 had, which is
The
this
second one in
one
your packet.
had 1,080 votes. Option number 1 had 1,072. This one. I'm sorry. Hold on.
I thought that one won.
Excuse me.
The one with the turtle and the palm trees won,
Oh, yes, 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 yes,
Yes.
yes, yes, that's the one.
yes. So I think
The one with the big sunset view?
Yes.
yes, that one won. And actually, she started tonight, so she's probably working on it as we speak. She started, I think, around 7:30, 8 o'clock tonight. She'll probably work until the morning because what she does is she puts up a projector and then she just paints away.
Oh.
Her name's Lucy. She's the one that painted the fire truck on the fire department's storage container. So we have already established a relationship with her. A little bit more updates on the building, the handrails. I don't know if anybody has seen, but the handrails started going up.
Megan, I was just gonna ask you a question regarding these murals.
Sure.
I talked to the city manager about this. Is there any place where you could add like Madeira Beach where people can?
For our planning and zoning department, no writing, which is why in the handrail, we added the city seal as a cutout. So up in the middle of the handrail on the ramp, you'll see the city seal is laser cut into the panel.
Can the residents and public go watch as she,
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
sure she would love to talk about her painting. She's very passionate about it.
yeah?
Yes. But Jenny was very specific, no writing in the mural. That goes against our sign code.
Wishful thinking.
I agree. I agree. But as I stated, the handrails, I'm not sure if they completed those today or not. They were securing them whenever I was over there. The seal portion of that, they had to modify a little bit. On the, I'm gonna call it the front side of the building, but the west side of the building, there are 2 sea turtles laser cut out into that as well. They will be pouring the concrete for the park tomorrow, starting tomorrow, I should say. And that will probably take a few days. There were significant damages to the curbs and the sidewalks, and as we cleaned up a little bit more, we found more damage, as we had expected. The milling and resurfacing is scheduled to begin next week on Wednesday or Thursday, I can't remember now. And once they mill, it'll take 1 or 2 days to mill it, and then it'll take 1 or 2 days to resurface it. As they're resurfacing, the stripers will come in directly behind them and start striping the parking lot. So they gave me pretty 100% we should have the park ready to open along with the restrooms, as long as we pass our final inspections by Tuesday, the 8th.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All good news.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any further comments? With nothing further, it is 9:27 and we are adjourned.